Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of California City Council meeting this Tuesday, November 27th, 2018. Our regular meeting at 6 p.m. At this time, please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. Thank you.
Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father, we're thankful for the privilege you've given us to live in this land. Thank you for giving us the privilege to live in this city. We pray that you'd help the decision-making tonight to be such that would give us a city that is safe to live in, enjoyable to live in, that would cause others to want to come to live here. Give wisdom to those making decisions tonight. We pray for safety for those that are protecting us. Thank you for each public safety individual. Thank you for our men and women that wear the uniforms of this nation scattered around this world. We pray for their protection. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you roll call us in?
Councilmember McGuire.
Here.
Paris.
Here.
Stump. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Gomez.
Here.
Mayor Wood.
Here. Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
Make that motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm seeing a cue from our attorney.
I had one item that came in late, one potential litigation item. If possible, could we add that to the agenda?
Okay. Would somebody make a motion to add that to the closed session agenda?
Make that a motion.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Or should we roll call it? Do you get? Okay, we got him. We got.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? Okay. Then we'll do that later. Thank you so much. All right. We have the motion and the second to adopt the agenda. We did that already?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if we completed it because he came up. So, all right. Madam Clerk, do you have any reports or late communications?
No, ma'am. But I do offer an apology to Mr. J.M. Powers through Al that I have misplaced the last week's late communication. So if you could happen to give me a copy, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Presentations tonight. City Treasurer Middleton is going to give us our October report of investments. Sir, the floor is yours.
Madam Mayor, Council, and our gracious public, I've identified $10.5 million in our investment accounts at Leif and Kern County. Last month I mentioned that we pulled down $1 million out of Leif. It's reflected in this month's report. I didn't have it reflected in last month's report. Bank of Sierra's holding on to monies for us. Our total in the general account is $11,284,174 as of the beginning of this month, or last month. And that's all I have, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, moving on to staff announcements. Chief Hurtado, Police Department update, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Since we met last, Police Department responded to 748 calls. Of those, we took 44 crime reports, including 24 felony and 20 misdemeanor reports. Half of them have been solved. We have 22 arrests, and we're working on the rest. To date, we responded to, as of today, 19,085 calls for service. Made 582 arrests. busy year. For the last couple days for our Thanksgiving week holiday, the most noticeable calls we've had, we had a total of 20 reported off-highway vehicle-related accidents. 7 of them were transported by ground ambulance, 2 of them by air ambulance, and we had one fatality. 15-year-old young man from Acton. I must say that that day, during this event, we had members from the fire department, police department, our off-road team, and despite everyone's attempt to revive this young man, he later died at the hospital. But you should have seen the members there. They did everything they could. And the last thing is someone ran their vehicle into Howard's last night. I was waiting for to see if somebody caught it. Fast trip. I believe it's still closed. I haven't to ask Joe, but I think it's going to be a little bit before it'll be sound enough to open back up for business. And that completes the police side of the reports.
Thank you very much. We're always sorry when we lose someone, and we know that we have a lot of people out there to lend a hand. It's just not. It was not meant to be that day. All right, Chief. Chief Goodell, Department update and fire.
Good evening, City Council people, staff, citizens of California City. Since we met last, 5 new cases in code enforcement, 14 closed, complaint forms received 10, new violations 16, fire department calls, we had 4 fires, 75 EMS/rescue, 1 service call, 15 good intents, one false call, and got a chance to go out and be with Eric and his team. Got to know the second community really, really well, and it was a beneficial and valuable experience, and we cooperated well to provide the best brand of protection that we could give them. And we actually, fire department garnered 8 dirt calls while we were out there, and surprisingly not real busy. Over the holiday time were 37 total calls. 8, like I mentioned, were dirt related, and 29 in the city. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Chief. We appreciate what your guys are doing as well. Public Works Department, Platt. Department update.
Mayor, Council, and Public. The water report for the month of November would be 9 mainline repairs, 3 failures, 12 services replaced, and 107 water meters. Over the weekend, at the end of last week, well 2 failed. And it's not a simple fail, it's a major fail. Either the bowls have broke, it still runs, so it still turns, but it's running very rough, and the water production dropped almost to the floor. So that's a big deal. It's our number 1 well. So they will be in town. It's on CCB, so it's going to be visible. So they'll be start pulling that tomorrow. We need to get that back up. As far as time frame, it couldn't happen at a better time as far as weather and temperature when we go into our slow part of the season. So over the weekend, reconfigured a couple of other wells to take the place and the lead. So it's pretty simple to do. It's just making changes within the SCADA system. So you'll see that come down, and it's going to be costly. It's been in there. It's been a very good well. It's actually about 20 years old. It was rebuilt. So I'm assuming hopefully it's just parts within the bowls itself. But we'll know more, and I'll report that to Bob, and he can send out a mass email of what we're going to be facing. If it's a total column, which more than likely it is, because it's probably been running for about 20 years, or about 16, I guess, which is really good life for something of that deep. It is one of our oil lube wells. So depending on how bad it is, we'll look at some point, because usually when you replace a lot, you convert those to water lube and get rid of the oil lube systems. So I'll bring all that information back as it unfolds.
Craig, for those that might not know, where exactly on CCB is that?
It's right at Yerba.
Okay. That's that one sits right there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the one right over by
We put
Gloria's.
a clay valve in there not a couple of years ago.
What's that?
We put a clay valve in there a few years ago.
Yeah, we've done a lot of work, meter work, and water discharge to get rid of the water hammer on startups and shutdowns.
That's correct.
Which all the wells have been equipped with. So it's an important well to us. I would hope that there's no failure within the actual casing or anything. I would suspect that. We didn't have any major earthquakes or anything to cause a problem, which we would see normally in one of the older wells. So I would suspect hopefully it's just limited to the bowls.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Finance Director Ibanez. Oh, you need a mic. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Community. We in the Finance Department are coming up to speed with what has been sort of outdated and certain processes that we've seen wanting to streamline, been engaging the entire team on how to bring financials up to date as well as other internal department stuff that needs to be addressed. And we've also been working a significant amount on the budget, which we will be addressing tonight. So.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Parks Manager Davrin, Parks and Rec update.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and members of the public. Just a couple quick announcements. We still have a little bit of room on our Youth Basketball League, so we are taking a few late sign-ups. And then, of course, I wanted to invite everybody to come out to Holiday Village this weekend. We've been working hard to get ready for this community event. We have the event starting Friday night from 4 to 8 p.m., and then on Saturday, the gym at the Stratus Center will open up at 1 p.m., and then we'll have the parade starting in front of City Hall here at 4 p.m. with the tree lighting, and it'll lead back over to the Stratus Center. And then the Holiday Village event will be open that night till 8 p.m. And then also on Sunday, we have the event taking place from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 5 o'clock p.m. So hopefully everybody can come out, get a chance to do some shopping, spend some time with the family by the fire, get a funnel cake. Made in Ireland's coming back for Saturday night and a couple hours on Sunday. There'll be all kinds of unique crafts, and it's a great time for the whole family. Santa Claus, of course, will be there. Photos will be available. And it's an event you definitely don't want to miss. If you didn't make it out last year, you're one of the few, because I think I saw pretty much the whole city come through at some point. So we hope everybody comes out again this year and enjoys the kickoff to getting us in the mood for the holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. City Manager Stockwell, city update.
One simple thing. We'll have a lot more to talk about with the budget, but we found this weekend that we had not done a very good job of communicating the impact of the holidays and the 980 schedule with offices being closed on Monday. And so we want to make sure that we do a better job of that. The next time we experience that extended time is Christmas week, because the the Friday off that comes with the 980 schedule will be the Friday before Christmas. And so we will have a Christmas, that Friday off, and then the Christmas holiday. So we'll make sure we get that information out to our customers and as well to the council. I apologize for that not coming through this time. And with that, I'd like to reserve the other comments to later in the meeting.
Thank you very much for that, sir. AB 1234, Council?
None coming up for this month.
Anyone? You know water stuff, air quality stuff coming? Okay. Went to the last Kern Cog. Really nothing to report. Maybe somebody else's next time. All right. So moving on to civic, community, and organizational announcements. Do we have any civic, community, organizational announcements other than the parade and the Holiday Village? Anybody? All right, moving on to public business from the floor. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the City Council on any matter not on this agenda and over which the City Council has jurisdiction. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Any public business from the floor?
Mary Corona, California City. This is not to detract at all from Mr. McGuire. I'm losing things. I have senior moments a lot. But I would like us to give a large round of applause to our retiring mayor. I think we will be very hard-pressed to find another individual who will give so much of herself to this city for so little thanks. So I'm sorry to see her go, but I'm glad to see Mr. McGuire coming. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Not necessary, but thank you. Any other public business from the floor? No, Mr. Hudson was trying to make his way up. There was a race for a moment. Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm sure that happens. That's it. Let's get ready. Brace yourself.
Good evening, Al Hudson. What is really a real concern is that we have had several water rate increases since the water rate study of 2014. And in that study, we're supposed to be getting over 5 miles per year water main replacement. That hasn't happened, but yet the water rates continue to increase. When these things are brought up by myself and J.M. Powers, they're ignored. And that is a disservice. The ignoring of our concern is a disservice to the public. And the public deserves answers from Public Works. If Public Works can't do the job and they don't have the staff to do it, or they're unwilling or incapable of doing it, why is not the City Council or the city manager overseeing the replacement of the line and directing or sending out RFPs for independent contractors to do the job that the public is paying for? We have absolutely no accountability. We have no staffing reports from Public Works. We have no turnovers. We have absolutely no reason why that 5 miles per year is not being done. And that this council should inquire into that. That's what I would implore them to do. The other items is, of course, the finance department. We have a new finance director, and he's not responsible, but the city manager certainly is for the September and October financial statements. They're not here. Yet, there's a concocted budget that you all are asking us to work on tonight, or look at or sit through. That concocted budget does not have an exit plan or reduction plan in the taxation as promised on the cannabis. It's not there. We don't have the cannabis production. The city needs to get there and step on that and get it
Time,
done.
Mayor.
I see my time is up, and may I have answers?
Yeah, let me give you a couple of answers. You just went through your last water rate increase. There was only going to be a water rate increases for 5 years. There are no more right now at this time unless there's another water study. So you won't see an increase this year unless something drastic happens. That's in the reports that are online that you have been able to investigate and look at yourself. With regard to the staffing updates, we do get staffing updates. It was in the last agenda. Every month, HR puts out a staffing agenda, which tells us how many different positions in all the departments are existing and which ones are vacant. So that information is also there. And let's see.
The utilization of these the staff afford to accomplish projects is not being done.
You know, you're saying two different things,
sir. What's wrong with this council? Why aren't you doing something about it instead of just taking our money?
You don't like the answer I'm giving you.
Got two
That's
more
the fact.
Meetings to go. Goodbye.
No. I've got one more, buddy. One more. And by the way, trust me, brother. I can tell you, not soon enough. No, you don't like the answers that come from here, but these are factual answers that we can point to. You can go to the agendas. All right, that's it. We're done. No answers for you. Next, anyone else have any more public business from the floor? Oh, can't wait.
Madam Mayor, Council, I would just like to request one more time. I think this is the 6th or the 7th meeting in a row that I've requested that something be done in regards to retention and recruitment of our public safety personnel. And our chiefs have to be given something to work with. Last meeting, there was something that was done for our police department, but something has to be done for both police and fire. Something more has to be done. And we've got to give these men wages, and if ladies will be attracted to these positions as well, need to be able to give them wages that are close to what other communities have. And I would encourage you to do something about that. Mayor-elect McGuire, you said at the American Legion that no longer will that be kicked down the road. So I sure hope that our next meeting is going to be in the agenda, what our council is going to do about that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We're working on it now. We're doing the budget. Got to have a budget before you can proceed.
David Stafford, California City. I've been gone for about 3 weeks and get back, and all I hear was this council ever given the September and October expenses. This is a budget time of the year. If they have not received it, why haven't you? If they've spent the money, you've got to have that before you can make any kind of decisions on this budget. They need to be in your hands. If they're not, there's got to be a reason.
Okay, anyone else? Public business from the floor?
Good evening, Mayor Wood, council members and staff. Madam Mayor, could I ask you to clarify, is tonight the last meeting for you and Mr. Gomez, or is there one more?
The last one I gavel out of, but on the actual last meeting that I'll be present at, even if the election is not certified, which we hope it should be, is the 11th, Tuesday 11th, and I will not be here after that, with or without a certified election, because I have other things I have to take care of.
Understood. And with that in mind, I would ask that your council make a couple of notes. In the last several years, we've brought testimony before this council with respect to doing everything necessary for economic expansion. In your notes, I would like a report from your council or staff. What is the result of your actions? How many non-government jobs have been created under your watch? Additionally, what is the current household income and what is the change, if any, under your watch? The second note that I'd love you to make is what have we done under your watch together with this community to stabilize our property values? It's an anecdotal piece of information. We know real estate households, homes have sold, have increased dramatically. However, they're flat now. And so in your notes, in terms of property value stabilization, what is your plan, other than cannabis, to stabilize land values? Anecdotal piece of information, land values are racing to zero, other than cannabis. So I'd like to see your results from this council. Third item, public safety. Please make a note. I'd like to have a result from this council. Are we any safer today? And anything that you can point to or measure that actually says to us that we're safer from the last Measure A, which was levied at $45 million on taxpayers, in addition to the general tax that's been levied. In your notes, also, what is your expectation from staff and from council that we will achieve a greater result in public safety as the new $52 million parcel tax is levied? Finally, your fourth item is trust. What can we do, council actions and staff, that the citizens of California City can trust that you are fiduciary to protect our property values without ever increasing parcel taxes through the creation of jobs and economic stability in the community? I'd love to hear your results, and we'll pass this baton on to the new council as well. And thank you for your time, and good evening.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Public business from the floor? Seeing none, we're moving on to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered routine and non-controversial and will be approved by one motion if no member of the council, staff, or public wishes to comment or ask questions. Public comments to be limited to 3 minutes, and a roll call vote is required. On consent calendar 1, we are pulling check number 104060 for further review. And then we also have on consent calendar 2 minutes for the meetings date stated there, for those that may not have the list, 6/12/18, 6/26/18, and 7/10/18. Consent calendar CC3 is give second reading by title only with further reading waived and adopt ordinance number 18-770. Quote, ordinance 18770 of the City Council of the City of California City rezoning 3 contiguous 1-acre parcels zoned ORA open space residential agriculture located at the southwestern corner of Nerelia Road and Mendabura Road, section 22, township 32, range 37, APN 229-261-08, 09, and 010 to M1 Light Industrial and Research. The zone change for MUS Musa Wadud, zone change number 1805. And that constitutes all 3 consent calendar items. Anyone from the public have any questions about any of those?
Mayor, could I have you repeat that check number, please?
Yes, ma'am. That's 104060.
Yeah, Al, that's, and I see the check number 104040 to Full Spectrum is here again. I'd like to know, since we all know that this is a Utah company, I'd like to know how they came to be selected over California licensed engineering firms, and who made that determination. And since the water regulators should be licensed and such, why are we using a company to do the software stuff for the SCADA system that are not licensed in California? But the primary question is, again, who made the selection? What was the process? And did RFPs go out? And is this the only one that company that responded? And I think that is...
State the rest of your questions.
I believe that is the only question on the check register that I have.
Okay. We made that selection at a city council meeting. It was in full public light of everybody in this council chambers. It was agendized and worked on and voted by the council. That question has been asked at least 17 times. since I've been sitting here, and I just don't know if I can make the answer any clearer. I just don't know. I mean, that we understand that they don't have to be licensed in the state of California for the work that they're doing, and you're talking about the SCADA system, correct? And some improvements to that. So I don't know what else to tell you. These have been asked and answered many times, sir. I don't know what to tell you. Any addition other than the fact that the full council had approval of this. I don't know what the vote was. I don't recall the vote. Well, we can find out what that vote was, but it was brought to the light of day like all the other business that's done in this city. Okay?
Okay, let's take a look at it because it just doesn't smell right.
Anyone else have anything on the consent calendar? Moving up here, gentlemen, questions?
Can you tell us why we're pulling 104060?
I can. There is a question with regard to one of the vehicles. Vehicle 308 was towed 4 times. On the 14th of October, it went from 204 Brentwood and Tehachapi to CCPD. On the 17th, 3 days later, it went from the PD to Patterson's Collision Center in Valencia. However, on the 18th, 1 day later, it also was picked up at 711 Anita Drive in Tehachapi and sent over to the PD. How is that possible? And then on the 24th, it went from Patterson's Collision to Valencia to CCPD. There's some information missing here, and it doesn't track where this vehicle was. It can't go from Patterson's, whatever this is, Patterson's Collision Center in Valencia back to Tehachapi at a different address within a day. And if you look at that, you'll see that there's some other issues. That's why they need to relook at that. And the green for that, I don't know who signed off on that. There's no PD signature on the green. That's why. Okay. Anybody else have questions about the consent calendar?
I've got just a couple. In reference to check 104043, that's Hilt Engineering.
Mm-hmm.
How much was out of pocket on that one? Or was it all paid for by other sources?
I don't have the invoice, but all work that's being done right now would be either for building and planning or on a state or federal project, which is refundable. I don't think we have any work being done on inside projects other than the grants for the DAC, which are the big water replacement projects. Submittal of a state project, and it would be any of the work that's authorized and paid for. So everything that I am aware of is all through either grants and or planning, which are all funds that are paid in front.
They're reimbursable?
Yes.
Okay. On Keefe and Sons Ford for unit, and that's going to be 104045, and it's unit 384, maintenance 2500. I don't know what vehicle that's assigned to.
It's the fire department. Or police department.
So that's one of the older SUVs, and we've done some holding off on getting some repairs done, and it was done. It's covered with the state grant, OHV grant.
Oh, for OHV?
Yeah, there was no air conditioning, no heating, everything we just kind of put on hold, and
okay,
we just needed it for Thanksgiving.
All right. There was, where is it? There was tires, check number 104074, and that was for unit 224, tire replacements, and we're looking at just shy of 1,200.
Where are you at now?
That was,
You said 10404, but you're,
oh, it's 104074.
right.
For four sets, four tires, $350 a piece. $1.75 for recycling.
Don't, just, okay.
What kind of tires?
Gold plated, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then in reference to the bank card, just on, let me find out where, it was unit, and this is out of, I guess, PD, unit 3011, repair body damage, $3,686.37.
Yes.
What happened?
Member had hit one of the guide wires on a vehicle, on a pole.
Yeah,
Is it a reportable accident to council? Under the guidelines that you'd set up?
Yeah, and anytime there was a
So
vehicle involved in TC, was
disciplinary action. I'm not sure how. I don't get into personnel stuff.
Yeah,
but
No, that's not
we're-
the question.
the-
When there is an accident with a vehicle.
any city vehicle
Body
gets
damage.
council in the past has been notified that,
Right.
just in case of a possible liability portion, but everybody on the council was supposed to be given a heads up, hey, by the way, this happened, type
Right.
thing.
It should have gone out. If it didn't, it's my bad. It's not the city manager's fault. I'd have to go through my emails.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Pardon? That was not check number. That was on the credit card.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And that's all my questions.
Thank you. You have any more questions?
Yes, I do. Going back to pulling this check from Preferred Towing, they gave us over a $20,000 discount. You want to pull this check, I'm sure they'll just pull the discount and we'll pay $40,000 instead of the $20,000.
I'm not questioning that, but you have to submit invoices that make sense. A car can't be towed on one day, brought to PD, then go down to some sort of collision center, and then the next day the same car get picked up at a different address in Tehachapi. That does not make any sense, does it? Does that make sense?
Did you look at the invoices?
Every one of them.
Every one of them.
I did. And the green for that particular package, there were two greens. One submitted for all the case numbers, the incidents, the CR numbers.
Right.
And then the first package was where those vehicles that that vehicle that I'm reporting about was listed. And the green wasn't signed off that I can see. It's not, this has to do with making sure that we're paying for what we're paying for. It's nothing else.
May I ask for a clarification on
Yes, sir.
which checks are you talking about? The car is in two places.
I'm sorry?
Just so I'm trying to clarify which.
The vehicle that we're in question is 308. If you look at the 14th, the 17th, the 18th, and the 24th and track the locations of those vehicles, that vehicle, you'll see what my concern was, which is why I asked the question. Now, if you find that somewhere else, let me know. Because I do sign the check, so I do this with every check.
Yeah, I see where the green wasn't signed.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
But the copy that I took of this today had all it had was a finance initial on it. Correct. Here it is.
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay.
So on invoice ending with 214, it was
Hold on.
Crown Victoria.
Let me get to that. Which they don't have page numbers on this. Hold on. 214.
Yeah, invoice ending with 214.
Okay. Okay, there you go.
Crown Victoria.
Correct. Now, what date is that? That's the 14th.
Correct.
That shows that it was picked up at 204 Brentwood in Tehachapi to be carried to CCPD. That's the tow from, tow to.
Okay.
That's good. And then if you look at, and I'll go to the invoices now since we're going down that road. If you go to invoice 17300, that takes that vehicle from PD to Patterson's Collision Center.
Okay.
Now let's go to the 18th. On the 18th, and somehow these weren't in order, so I can see there might have been a, hold on, where is that? On the 18th, same vehicle number goes from an address in Tehachapi to CCPD, but that had already been towed to Patterson's Collision Center. Then you go to, and that invoice, by the way, is 17221. And the next one is on the 24th. And that would be invoice no, I'm sorry, that's a different vehicle, I'm sorry, 17303. And then it went from Patterson's to CCPD. So you see how it's not tracking?
So on the one ending on 221, that was not Unit 308.
It says Unit 308 here in the notes. That's why I tinged on that. That's what it says right here. Here, I've got it for you. It's right here. It's in that package. It says Unit 308.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking these questions.
So that's the incorrect unit number. It was a Tahoe that was towed on the 18th.
But if I'm taking what I've presented in invoices and tracking them, it's a valid question to ask.
Sure, yeah. Under description shows a 14 Chevy Tahoe, and for some reason on notes it showed 308, and that's not correct. That's not correct. A 308. That'd probably be a 3006.
You know, and
Could we find out what it should be? That's the only thing we're asking here.
And on 303, $1?
Yeah, he charged us $1. You know, he discounted it $634. Okay, that's a pretty major discount.
It is a pretty major discount.
You know, when you total all the discounts, it's well over $20,000. So I think he's doing this city a service. I agree if there's a wrong unit number on there, we need to look into it. But I believe we should pay this and not take the chance of ending up having a bill for $40,000 instead of $20,000.
I'm just saying that as a good steward of the public's trust, that we should verify the things that we are paying for. And this didn't line up. And you see what I'm talking about, Chief. You read it yourself. That even though it may have said something in the notes, if there's somebody also wrote on invoice 17302, there was nothing in the notes about the vehicle, and someone, I don't know who, wrote Unit 3007, just hand-scribed it at the top of this. I don't know who did that. So I assume that that was Unit 307. It wasn't maybe on the invoice, but someone hand-wrote it for some reason. So I looked at that as being a valid thing for that vehicle.
Chief, is there any way, is the vehicle VIN included in a description? Maybe that might give us a better idea.
The VIN number.
Yeah, the VIN number
the invoices.
is on there.
Okay.
It's on the license plate number. So the
Just
only
going by-
discrepancy is the note
Okay.
that was put in there. But
So-
everything else seems to match up.
So since we've got this out here, the other questions are on the, which we haven't gone into. There are other questions on this, that we had a 34-day impound that we paid $9,000 for, $9,385. We've got another one on a case that's $10,218.48. we have another case on here. I can give you the case numbers, but they're on this same information that you guys possess, $1,078. And you have another case number for $962. I think that hit all of them. So there were just some questions about why those case numbers went very long. I understand investigations take some time, but in the case of the $9,000 and change one, that was 334 days. So these are a lot of actions that have occurred over a long period of time. And it's not who we're paying, Councilman. It's that we are making sure that we're doing due diligence on what we are paying. That's all.
I can clarify a couple since you brought them up.
Go for it.
The $9,385
Okay.
detectives held that was a kidnapping case.
Okay. And we didn't keep that vehicle here in the community? Where was that? We towed it off out of the community?
Right. We don't have a place to store a vehicle that we would want to fingerprint or get blood off
Got
it.
it.
So we don't have an
Okay.
enclosed
Fine. Okay.
garage.
That's something to look at.
The other one's
So
a
that was
kid-
334 days on that case.
The other one's a kidnapping case.
Which one? You've got,
$10,218.
okay. Okay.
Let's see. Date's 17. I'm not sure which.
It's a 2017 case, 1983.
Yeah, I'd have to look to see.
Got it. Anyway, those were other questions. I had sent this off to the city manager at 11:33 this morning, but we have something wrong with our internet service, so he did not receive that. Somebody might have received it, but he didn't.
Yeah, all those, the large storage are detectives held for their major crimes. I mean,
That's the only questions we were asking, and we couldn't get that information. Again, it is not about the company, it's about doing our due diligence. Now, we either do our due diligence on some and we don't do them on the others because it's not popular, or I don't know what you're doing here. Yes,
Just-
sir.
Just information on 104-074, the tires, those are backhoe tires.
Okay, thank you.
To say something?
Well, my concern arises from finding out that the bill that we should have received from Precision Towing should have been $40,000 instead of $23,000. Neither would we or could we solicit discounts. Why are we getting these discounts? Because the service, we should be paying the real cost of the service, not getting invoiced for one fee and then paying another. How do we track that for value?
On the
That's the first I've
invoice,
heard of
they,
us
they
getting
show the
these.
discount that they're giving us, and it's, if you want to pay the full amount, Mr. Stockwell, by all means, do that, but they were doing the city a service by discounting these 334-day holds because of the condition of the city, It's just like, well, I won't go into that. So it's our choice. We can pay it or we don't have to pay it. If you want them to, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to give us a bill for the $40,000 if that's what you want.
I think the parties involved is what's creating this discussion. Sharper Landscaping did over 30 projects where we never invoiced the city. We just did it because I wanted to do it. We didn't say these are discounts or anything like that. These were just things that I always wanted to do while we were doing the landscape maintenance. So I mean, I can understand there are discounts. So if there are discounts, I don't have any problem saving the taxpayer some money, as long as we're doing it on the up and up.
Well, the question I have is, we only use one tow company. And so how do we know what the real cost is? Is it a $20,000 discount or is it a $3,000 discount or 20 cents? because we don't know, because we haven't competitively bid the towing services. And so it's a question in my mind why we get these discounts.
The state sets the regulation, Mr. Stockwell. They set the price, not the tow company.
When we had the other, let's go back to Howard's, like I said at the beginning, a few years ago. When we had three,
Clark and Howard.
we had three tow companies in town. The officers would get a flat tire, and for some reason jack wouldn't work, or to change the tire, or somebody would need a jump start. Both other tow companies, Dennis Auto and JM's Towing, they'd come out and do the service. And back then they'd also do, hey, we'll charge you $50 instead of a normal thing would, I don't know what is, $200 for coming out in the middle of the night. I think like Mr. Paris said, they just feel sorry for us.
Well, it's not that they feel sorry for us. It's they've been giving us automatic discounts for 10 years. And now it seems to be an issue.
I didn't question the discounts. I didn't question any of that. I questioned the invoices and the way they were presented to us for payment. That's what I questioned. And I should question these things. As a good steward of the public's trust, I should. But I get my head cut off because you think it's something else.
If I wanted to cut your head off, Mayor, we could really go into it.
Come on.
She started it,
Come on.
Yeah, I did. Bring it. Boo-hoo. Boo-hoo.
Here's the thing.
Boo-hoo.
If you look at, one tow company is good. If you look at Plano, Texas, which is in the top 5 cities in the United States, Plano has one towing company. They have Jordan's. If you look at a city close to us, if you look at Santa Clarita, oh, and by the way, Plano has 350,000 people, so much larger than us, but one tow company. If you look at Santa Clarita, about 250 or so thousand people, they have one tow company. Most places have one tow company, so that would be consistent with everything else. And then Preferred Towing has a tow yard here in the city, and then they have in Santa Clarita, they have a garage that they can keep things in for evidence and so on. So no other tow companies around here have that.
I think what they're referring to is, and I don't know how this contract came about, but maybe there
is no
wasn't
contract.
a competitive bid. In other words, maybe in Plano, Texas, you had 10, 15 different tow trucks bid, and then one, based on the rates that they presented in their proposal, they were awarded the contract. In this case, maybe that wasn't the situation. I don't know how we arrived at this point with this tow truck company, but maybe that's the difference.
Mayor?
Through attrition.
And we had rotational tows as well in this community. And I recall a time, and you know this as well, Chief, that they were a rotational tow, because if one of them got called out of sequence, you'd hear from the other one.
Yeah.
We had those in my time living here, yes.
For the purpose of time, maybe we want to agendize that for a later time about the tow.
You
but
should do that.
I'd be happy to answer any questions about the tow bill.
This is moving back to the consent calendar and the fact that there are anomalies that I pointed out that council can decide now what you'd like to do with that, if you're happy and satisfied with the answers that have been provided. My job is to make sure we're doing the right thing.
I think that the chief has explained those so-called anomalies. He has the VIN numbers. He's pointed out that the vehicles that you were talking about, Mayor, were accounted for. So I see no reason why to withhold this check.
All right, Council. Any other questions about the consent calendar?
I had a couple more.
Go for it.
Actually, just for a point of clarification.
Yeah.
You may want to just pull that one and vote on it separately.
We can do that.
There's no reason you can just have a separate vote. That way it's normally
We can do
the
that.
consent is all together. So.
Perfect. We can do that. Councilman?
104019 to Charles Crowley Company Incorporated for $1,938.51. 104019.
It's on page 3. Center.
For two 6-inch flex connectors and 3 C282 inserts on the chlorine cylinder flex connectors and a filter pad insert. Not seeing the code, but that would either be the sewer or one of the connections at the well, which requires special.
Okay. Then everybody's brought up before on check 104043 to Health Engineering, and my question is not necessarily on the checks, but I thought that we had people who could repair water mains in our public works, and we paid Health Engineering $11,542.50 to do that.
That's no water main repairs. That's the DAC grant we got for the 2 projects on the north and south side of CCB. That was roughly $60,000 grant.
That was water main replacement, right?
It's for the bid-ready project, so it's all the engineering and the bid docs, everything to actually put out 2 projects.
Okay, and we get that reimbursed?
Yes.
Okay.
Any more?
I think that is it.
Okay. Any more questions that you have on the check registers? Anybody up here?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So, and not just the check registers, but any of the consent calendar items. All right. With that, I'm looking for a motion to approve consent calendars 1, 2, and 3 with the exclusion of 104060 on CC1. We're going to do that separately. So I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right.
To approve.
Looking for a second. Anybody want to second this? The consent calendar?
I'll second it.
Okay. Roll call, Madam Clerk, on the first run for CC 1, 2, and 3.
Councilmember McGuire?
Yes.
Paris?
Yes.
Stump?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gomez?
Yes, but I will abstain from CC3.
Mayor Wood?
Yes. All right. Now, going back to CC1, item 1, check number 104060. Looking for a motion to...
I make a motion to approve that check.
I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember McGuire?
Before I vote on that, Bob, if possibly we could do a change in something where these greens are a little bit more accurate than what's being depicted. It seems like that's becoming a major thing now.
I made a note of that with the department in the last meeting. We need to put more explanation into the green sheet.
Okay. Okay, with that, yes.
Paris?
Yes.
Stump?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gomez?
Yes.
Mayor Wood?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to new business 1, the amendment to the cell tower agreement. City Manager Stockwell.
Members of the council, you may recall earlier in the year, we entered into a similar process with the cell tower currently being managed by Verizon in authorizing the sale of the lease interest in lieu of receiving payments over the time of the lease that was in place. We have 3 cell towers that are located in essentially the same location. The second one that has stepped forward with the request to be able to buy out that leasehold interest. Based upon the analysis of $256,000 in pocket now versus the possibility that over the term of the lease, the technology will wear out, and in fact the lessee can simply terminate the contract by notice and would no longer pay any fees. I recommend that the council allow us to accept this payment in lieu of the ongoing lease payments. One reason for this is that the technology of cell phones is changing. In fact, coming forward in the coming year will be changes in regulations from the FCC as it relates to small scale cellular which is that the cell towers are, cell phone communication is moving from the large towers down to neighborhoods. And the likelihood that in the time frame that we're talking about here that these cell towers will even be in use is very unlikely, because the technology is moving away from large, tall, to in fact things will be on light poles and power poles in neighborhoods rather than large-scale cell towers. And so based upon that, we recommend accepting the lease buyout of $256,840.73.
Thank you very much, sir. Go to the public first. We have done this before. We did this with someone else earlier this year, as you heard. We did this in these council chambers. Anyone from the public have any questions or concerns about this? Seeing none, moving up here. Gentlemen? Council?
No questions.
All right. Looking for a motion.
Make a motion that the city council authorize the city manager to execute the lease agreement with the company where the city will receive the amount of $256,840.73.
I'll second that.
Madam Clerk, could you roll call us, please?
Councilmember McGuire?
Yes.
Paris?
Yes.
Stump?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gomez?
Yes.
Mayor Wood?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, ma'am. Continued business, CB1 budget workshop. Let me ask if you want to go with that budget workshop, or do you want to and continue the way we're doing this now and then go into closed session at the end?
I prefer that we wade into the budget.
Okay, let's do it.
Hand out the additional information for the council tonight. We had given you the overall documents on the fund basis, and so what we'll give you tonight is a binder to start keeping track of these changes. What you will find, if you've got the items that we gave to you earlier.
Thank you.
We can punch those holes so you can start putting them in your binder. If you have any of those we'd like to have changed. So one of the things that we will do going forward through these workshops is that when my anticipation is that the council will, as we talk about each department, is when there's a feeling amongst the council that something ought to be changed, that we go ahead and vote informally to be able to do that. And when that happens, then we will prepare those changes and distribute it at the following meeting with the council. So the blue sheet that you will be receiving, which is the all-fund summary, at the beginning of your binders, has the updated figures from the last time we gave you this. And so this will highlight for you that this is the one that has the most current figures in that. And so tonight the intent is to focus on police and fire and go as far as we can tonight in a reasonable time frame. Hopefully to be able to accomplish both police and fire, and if not, then we will pick up where we stop tomorrow evening and go from there. And so what the council has in the packet here, and we obviously have no expectation that you have memorized this, or since you're just seeing it for the first time, what you'll find is each of the funds that the police department manages. And so instead of just the police department, as in the special tax fund, it's all of those elements in the police department are contained in what we have here tonight. And then following that will be the fire department, and again, it will go through all of those things that are assigned, the different funds that are assigned to the fire department. And so we're prepared to begin the discussion with the police department tonight, and we'll turn that time to Chief to begin us that process. And
Chief, before you begin, I need to ask a point of clarification. Before the holiday, you sent us some files. In this files, there's a report from the police department on like the traditional values and expanding. That has still stayed the same, and the data that was provided is the only thing that's changed. The numbers, right? This is correct. This stays the same.
The one that you have in your file tonight is the one that's correct.
Well,
So if you'll turn to tab number 3.
okay.
We
This is
reviewed
what I'm
those. I
saying.
went over those with the chief today, and those are the current ones that we have.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So we start, the way we got it set up, Chief, to begin with is the off Fund 16. Which is the OHV program. In the original document that we gave you, and I've already got mine because I didn't keep the old page, the original document of the all funds showed Fund 17, I think it was, with a balance of $383 in it.
Yes, we journalized that out.
And we, since that is just a carryover of revenues from, or expenses from a prior year, we journalized that, moving it into Fund 16. And so Fund 17 disappears this year. And so on the blue page, you'll see that as it goes across the ending fund balance of 383, and then the capital will go to 0. So with that, Chief, the rest of the OHV program.
So Fund 16, if council recalls, about 4 years ago, it used to be covered under a different fund number. We've since made it its own fund number with Fund 16. The way the OHV grants work is in January we will start requesting or looking at funding for the following year. It takes about 6 to 9 months to prepare for a future grant. We are not able to follow the traditional fiscal year from July to June. The State OHV Commission announces and awards the OHV grants throughout the state too late for us to be able to get us in our regular fiscal year. So what we see is we start our OHV grants in the traditional federal fiscal. We start in October and we end in September 30th of the following year. We currently have several OHV programs that we've been awarded in the past that you'll see in this Fund 16, and also the current awards that will be starting partially through this current fiscal year. So we still have a remaining funding from the previous year that will end in September, or end in September, which is our current fiscal year, and we'll see the award amount that will start in October. This current year, we have requested our law enforcement grant. We're currently have been awarded as of October 1st to be able to begin spending on that of $119,852. Our current ground operations grant that covers signage, trail maintenance, that type of thing. For this next year, we were awarded $601,668. We also have a recreational trails program, RTP grant, that we were awarded 2 years ago that we will be spending some funding on. It may be easier to ask if there's any questions about how the OHV program is funded where the source of revenue is or how we spend it. The guidelines that we use is we only spend what we receive. We come up with a plan ahead of time of what we think we might spend. The state says we'll fund 80% or 60% or 40%, and then our program is based on whatever the award is amount, and that's what we spend for the following year. Between the grants that we awarded this current fiscal year with the remaining amounts from the previous, we plan on spending $721,520 of the state's OHV green sticker money. On below in the expenditures, it's broken down into the different categories. Personnel services, non-personnel services, capital outlay, and transfers. For the ground operations, we have five employees employed for the ground maintenance for the second community. That's the $248,909. The non-personnel services, $43,032. That's for equipment repairs and supplies that they'll need, signage, fence posts, reflectors. Transfers, I'll have to ask our finance director. I'm not sure what that line item is, the 2252. I'll go on while maybe he gets a chance to look at that. On the law enforcement portion, okay.
The transfer is allocating administrative overhead.
Okay. I'm being told that there's a typo. The personal services is more than $1,500 for the year.
Question I have on this is, we know that we have a deficit from last year of $290,361, and even with $721,520, we're still going to have a deficit of $118,852, and that doesn't even include, if you go through the payrolls that we've had so far this year, it's not taking into account the overtime and everything else. So my assumption is that deficit of $118,852 that's projected is going to be higher than that, much higher than that. And Mr. Ibanez is, you're the finance director. I mean, am I speaking out of, am I correct or not correct?
Well, maybe since he wasn't involved in this before, it has to do with the cycle of the funding, that we carry this forward from mid-year to mid-year, and so the cash flow balance is where it gets confused.
Yeah, we're about 6 months on reimbursements. So here we're sitting in November. Christmas is right around the corner. And we're barely, what was the last March? Around March. The state reimbursements are taking a little bit. We've submitted, I know it's hard to believe that the state isn't as speedy as other organizations. We're waiting patiently for the state to reimburse us for the costs that we've submitted. We get pretty close to the dollar
Okay.
As far as what, so the deficit you'll see is funding reimbursements that as are anticipated. We just have not received it, and that's going to just it'll throw it off on the figures that on a normal accounting for a fiscal year, just because we're still waiting for funding from last fiscal year to catch up.
Okay, I understand that, Chief. Just a question, though. One of my pet peeves is overtime, and I don't see any projections in this budget for that, unless it's under something else. But I don't see it. This is such a high-view budget that, for me, the accountant in me wants to see more detail.
Okay. So what council's being presented tonight is an overview of the different types of funding or different expenditures lumped into the 4 different categories. If council would like a further breakdown.
Wait, now I'm concerned, because this is where we're doing our budget workshops.
Exactly.
These are the numbers we're dealing with. When we say yay verily or no, it's on this budget as it's presented. These should be the numbers that we're working towards. Am I correct, or is this not the right budget workshop?
No, you're correct.
Okay, so
I think what needs to be pointed out is specific to overtime. The change that we had talked about is that going into this year, we would not be hiring back our own officers on overtime to work OHV. And so they will be hiring off-duty police officers from other agencies who will only be paid the hourly rate that they agree to come on board. And so where we had allocated a significant amount of money for overtime, that will drop. I think we're only showing premium overtime of $6,500 going into the beginning of the year, with the regular salaries at $149. So when you look at the prior year estimated 17-18, you had regular salaries at $72,685, $2,300 for straight overtime, and $41,000 for premium overtime. And so it's shifting away from our off-duty officers working out there. Whenever they work there, they have to be paid overtime.
Right. Now, there's something else, too, because there's other parties in the room that are going to be interested in this. I just, as a suggestion, Chief, would say that for the new council members, and maybe as a refresher to others, understand that when you submit these grants, you submit under specific categories, and some of them are related to overtime or what have you when you're submitting the grants, correct?
Yes.
So it's just a matter of, this is not your budget for Fund 18?
No.
This is your OHV budget?
It's
So
separate
this is
budget.
based on the grants that you have submitted already for, one way or the other. Whether you submit something in the future different is of no concern at this point, other than apples and oranges.
Right.
Apples and oranges for Fund 18's overtime are strictly different from this.
Well, these numbers, we're only going to spend what has been awarded, and nothing more.
Whatever you ask for, how you ask for it, how it goes through us to approve for you to submit, and whatever you get back from the state, that's what you're going to spend.
Correct.
Okay, so you're mixing the two together. You're mixing OHV and the things that we deal with separately on those budgets from the fund, the special tax money, and from the regular budget for Fund 18, correct?
Yes, this is just Fund 16.
I understand that, but I'm seeing a segue to something that's trying to hit with your overtime in another capacity and controlling the overtime.
No,
there.
not really. Does this
That's what it
budget
sounds like.
include overtime?
Yes.
Okay. And it's for all the people who work out? Okay, okay.
For any.
So maybe it would be good, like you've done for all of us, to give new council members a primer. Thank you. If I can find mine, I'll get it to you, because we're purging fast.
Yeah, if you look on page 2 of 3, you can see the salaries at $149,864. $6,500 for premium overtime as opposed to $41,000 the prior year.
Could I ask a question also? I'm looking down on page 3, so you know where we are. And this has to do with the revenues that are coming in. Now, these will be revenues from the grants, your grants that you've had up to this point. Where in this, and maybe not on this page, do you handle the budgeting? Because I haven't looked at this completely, having just received this tonight. Where do you handle the OHV permit fees budget?
That'll be in Fund 29.
Thank
That'll
you.
be at the end of.
Thank you.
Hopefully, the end of tonight.
Hopefully, yes.
Or sooner.
We're moving along. Okay. Anyone else have any questions about tab number 1 and the OHV monies? You have any concerns about the monies that are requested here? Concerns on how they're budgeted? See at the bottom of the page, for anybody that's new to this, the different grants and the years that they had them. They won't go all the way back, but they'll go with what they have current here.
Right. And Mayor, like I was explaining when you're out of the room for a second, we used to lump them all into one, and finance has worked with us to separate it. So one of the things that the state auditors like is that when we get a grant, it's given us a specific fund number. When we're done with it, we close it. So what we expect for revenue will equal expense. It's zeroed out, and we're done. And once we're awarded a new grant, let's say for next year, we'll go to finance and ask for a new fund number. That way, it's very clear that none of the funds are going to get bleed over into one or the other. So it's much clearer now than years in the past.
And I think we did this 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a few.
So it's provided a lot more clarity.
Any questions on 16?
Let's move on to, what would you like to go to next?
So Fund 17 is, we're going to pass that because that used to be the fire EMS grant, and there wasn't funding last year for it. So we'll.
Fund 17 was the one we acknowledged to the council. When you received your first overview, it showed $383. And so that was journaled out. And so there's no longer any funding in 17. So those amended pages show that it's just simply zeroed out. It won't be part of next year's budget, but it tracks where it went.
That makes sense. So, Chief, you're going to go into then, we're moving to tab 3, which is the
Correct.
summary. Okay, let's go.
So the funding for the police department and services is based on revenue, based on the 2018 Measure C measure. The funding with a target of 184212 will cover the core, the original 19 sworn officers, personnel costs for these positions, along with the administration, 4 jailers, CSOs, and evidence officer is $2.5 million. We are looking at having 5 officers and 1 jailer that are currently in backgrounds, that we anticipate them coming on board sometime, hopefully before Christmas. They're going through, I believe, somewhere to the point of medical clearances, and so we're just waiting for their tests to get back, and the others are a little bit, probably another couple of weeks away, and then you'll see them coming on board. One thing that was passed, I believe at our last meeting or meeting before, is the position of officer trainee. We've been advertising since the passage of Measure C to try to get lateral officers to come to California City. Those are deputy sheriffs or police officers that work at other departments, and to plainly steal them from another department to come work for us, so we don't have to pay the training expenses. We have 5 that are in the process now. We don't have any further applications, so we'll have to go to trainees. That expense would include the cost of their lodging, their travel, the school, ammunition, uniforms, and their salaries. The academy is 6 months long. After that, should they pass the academy, they'll go through a field training program and then be able to work solo officer with our department. We're hoping to get close to around 15 to 17 officers by the end of the fiscal year. That's our goal. It just depends on how many applicants that apply or are going to be able to pass background, extensive testing, and the academy. So if you ask me how many I will have on June 30th, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I am hoping to have all 19. I don't think I will. So I think it's based on a lower number of 17. The cost with salaries for the 6 months and the additional expenses of the academy, I'm estimating if we sent 5 officers away, their salary, the cost of the academy and training would be about $275,000 for each of those. And there's no guarantee they'll make it a year, but we're hoping. If you go to my next page on enhanced use of technology and equipment, on page 2, in 2018, we've completed the installation of mobile data computers in our patrol vehicles. Our officers are now being trained and have started getting immediate access that normally would be communicated over dispatch. If you ever listen in, sometimes you'll see an officer communicate that they are on scene of a call or completed a call, and you never hear the call. That's because they're getting that information via the computer system. Also in 2019, we're looking to progress to where the dispatch center can see at a glance the tracking of where the officers are at, so then they can dispatch the closest available unit to the call. Also, this will help in the officer's safety. As everyone knows, we've had an increase in violence towards officers, not just California City, but everywhere in the state and the nation. It'll help dispatch be able to see where the officer is at if they don't have time to jump on the radio to call for assistance. There's a different funding that I will go into more detail in the other tabs that you have, but I just want to go over what those funding sources are. The Cops Recovery Grant, which is Fund 20, also known as Tab 5. Tab 5 is our school resource officer. It's a 3-year grant. The feds awarded us $125,000, and I believe we're on year 3 or getting ready to go on year 3 of that grant. And that's to provide a school resource officer to be stationed at
our schools. We have not been able to fill that position lately. There's going to be substantial funding left over in the remaining of the grant, and if the stars and the planets and moon align just right, we might be able to fund an extra officer for the remaining part of the grant, and be able to maybe fit one or 1.5 or 2 officers during the school season. Yes,
Chief, on that, on Fund 20, I see deficits, and I'm not trying to beat you up, but
Sure.
I see deficits, and I don't see, and you just said that there's nobody in that position yet. Why would there be a deficit in there if there's?
Sure, I can explain. When it was originally awarded, we coded in payroll as a particular officer to do that position, and we had to not coded it correctly when that position left. They went TDY. They're serving our country somewhere else. And then there was just the recurring, because they were allowed military leave. We're not able to get that credit, and we just had not removed that coding from that person. And so I was working with finance to make sure we remove that. So any leave that officer, any funding that we have for that officer now would be coming out of Fund 18, and that deficit will be zeroed out. And that's something that we've talked with finance today to make sure that's done. So you'll see this zeroed out. On COPS Fast Grant 25, Fund 25, this is our $100,000 a year federal grant. Our portion, we get $100,000 each year to provide basic law enforcement services. One of the federal funding that started, I want to say it's been over 10, maybe 15 years, that a lot of police agencies, law enforcement agencies were not able to provide simple things like bulletproof vests, handcuffs, basic tools that the officers would need. So this grant was awarded to help smaller departments get the basic equipment that officers would need and augment what they need to be able to perform their duties.
I have a question on that one too.
Yes.
If we're fat in that department, are there stipulations saying that you can't use Fund 25 money in another fund, or it has to remain in Fund 25?
So what we've done is, if it's something like our police cadets, something that, for instance, if we had paperwork to go to the courthouse in Mojave, it's a basic necessity to get the courthouse the paperwork, and we can use that for other funding. We've been able to roll that over because in the years past, our police cadets, we've only been able to get one on board compared to 2, so there was money left over, and we're able to roll that over to the next fiscal year, if that answers the question.
At this point, it might be good to as a refresher to some, to get a definition of what is covered under those, given the legislation that covered that. It'll help everyone to get caught up on what these funds are for, and then that will help, because we've been given that before to understand what and how they can be used and how you can move them forward. Thank you. That's just a suggestion, to help the new folks.
Under Fund 26, it's our Proposition 172 public safety tax. It's a half-cent sales tax. What it is for every, we get half a cent for sales tax, and that is turned around and given back to the city to augment public safety's basic needs. What we are able to provide funding for is basic necessities such as training, equipment. This last year, we approved annuitants to help clear some of our backlog of cases. This will be a target that we'll use to clear some of those cases, or funding, I mean. Detectives would be specialized in major crimes, homicide, sex crimes, white-collar crimes. And also, it's paid for in the past our necessary radio upgrades when we went to narrowband. I think that was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. Armory supplies, body and city cameras, any body armor that would otherwise not be covered under one of the other funding, and any other specialty equipment. So in all the, I'll go specifically in those other funds, but we're excited about the potential for economic growth for the city. We're constantly adapting to meet the challenges of policing, a growing and progressive population. We hope to expand our police force to the necessary numbers. There's been discussion in the past on what the state and FBI believes we should be, where we're at now, and what council and staff's goals are for personnel numbers in the future. And hopefully with the economic growth, we can get to those numbers soon.
You know, Chief, one thing that people have been telling me since the approval of Measure C, and looking at how things have been going in our community with regard to the, I'm not going to say it out loud, the numbers that we have on our force now, that what people really want out of our police department are more boots on the ground, not boots behind desks. They want more visibility in our communities. They want to see more cruisers on at night, day, and other times, because they recognize that that's what they're paying for. They want to pay for that level of security, because that will eliminate, or at least when nobody's going to break into somebody's house when you have cruisers on the street and going through our community. And that's what I'm hearing. That's overwhelming. That's the #1 priority from people that I know that work to pass and that passed Measure C. They want more people, more visibility of our law enforcement officers. That's just hands down. That's been the majority.
Please, if I can have 20 more officers tomorrow, I would gladly put more officers on the streets.
I get that. So
if you know anybody that's interested, we're hiring.
No, I know. I understand that.
Going to address a couple of things. We've been hearing very regularly that we need to be doing something to enhance our ability to recruit police officers and firefighters. And so what's included in the budget for now in police, I think, is significant to recognize what is sought for, but we don't think going to be able to be filled, is 8 new line police officers. We would retain the current administrative structure of the chief and 1 lieutenant, and the current supervisory structure. And so all 8 of those positions would be line officers as they come on board. Hopefully we will, and then the other issue that, the other shoe that won't drop until after we go through the labor negotiations is how can we enhance our ability to recruit police officers and firefighters. So we have not budgeted all of the money on purpose, because we have some major process we need to go through to determine what our our personnel expense will be going forward. And so I think what we can assure the citizens is that the budget as proposed has sufficient money in it to not only maintain the level that we are authorized right now, but increase as quickly as we can going through the recruitment process, and also room for us to go out and negotiate salaries and benefits that should make our department more attractive now than it is. But obviously, we have to go through that process as the law mandates, and so we're not prepared at this point to talk about those things. The new council can get real excited. My intent on December 11th is to go into executive session to start getting negotiating parameters for police, fire, and miscellaneous employees of the city. All three of the contracts are subject to negotiation and renewal, and so we'll let them jump in and get their feet wet in that process. And so reading in the budget right now, you won't see what we're going to do there because we can't really list it until we've actually agreed on what it's going to be. But there is sufficient budgeted. When we look at the funds that the police department uses, the various funds, you'll notice that there are reserves. And so that's obviously where we would go to enhance those things as we go forward. And I'd like nothing better but than to come back to you in April and say, gosh, we need to appropriate some additional money because we filled all the current vacant positions and we've got 3 new people ready to go to work. That's my goal, if we can get that done. But as you can see on page 1 of the chief's process, the breakdown of the officers, when it says full-time sworn officers, that includes from the chief down to the most recent sworn police officer. And so all we're really doing in all other operations is maintaining what we currently have, putting all of the emphasis going forward on police officers in the street to get the work done out there. So.
Thank you. And it's encouraging that we're going to get that going sooner rather than later. But we have to get through this process before we can do that. Hope people understand that. Okay. Chief, where are you at?
Okay. On police services, 184212 is the fund number. We can go line by line on the different funding with personal expenses, non-personal expenses, capital outlay, vehicles and debt. Just before we made our way over here, my staff prepared a one-page document that maybe be helpful that would show where we were at last year on the budget compared to this year, so council and staff can see what the difference is and why we moved from one direction to the other. And if you're okay with that, I'll have my staff pass out the one-page document.
That would be fine. That would be good. However, I hope the numbers match, because that would confuse parties. If it doesn't match the numbers we got, it'll make it very, very confusing.
Yeah.
I'm giving a nod. Yes, they do match.
Because I mean, you just gave us these numbers, and you're going to give us something else that could muddy the water and confuse folks.
But while you're deciding on that, let me point something out to Councilmember Stump. If you look at the overtime budget for enforcement, which is on page 3 of 5, right at the top, we've broken down the all of the personnel-related expenses. So for the current year, or last year, we spent $246,000 on overtime. We're budgeting $214,000. That number is going to stay high until we fill some positions, because right now we are hiring officers back on overtime simply to cover. The officers are working very long hours. The goal is, as we fill the positions that we're suggesting for the council to consider going forward, then this number should start dropping correspondingly as it comes in, because the only overtime that would come out of this budget is that is directly related to law enforcement services. And so there's, for now, because of the vacancies, it needs to be a high number. But one of the benefits in being able to go forward and fill these positions is get the officers home more often, and at the same time not be paying out the high overtime, because these officers work 12-hour shifts. Overtime for them is a brutal affair. And so for 2 reasons we need to limit or reduce the overtime. One is for the good of the officers, and the other is for the good of the community, to be as responsive as we can. And so that's why you're see major changes in overtime, because remember, this is through June 30th, to carry us through what we're currently, where we're currently at for this year. It was easy for me as I went through this process to keep thinking, I was thinking about next year, but we're not. This just gets us through June 30th. So.
Diego, if you don't mind me calling you Diego, question that I have for you: when we've worked budgets up here for a while now, some of us, and what are your forecasted budget numbers here based on? What we're currently authorized, what's currently filled, or a combination to derive? For example, if you go to 3 of 5. In the very top line, 110 regular salaries for 2018-19, it's $1,252,586. What staffing constitutes that?
It's a combination of things. We do have a backup spreadsheet that links into this number that we didn't provide just because it's a bunch of detail with a description of what the current positions are, what's available, what's approved, hourly based, overtime, cafeteria plan, everything that goes into that. So it's a combination of what's currently there and what the chief has planned to going forward with what his department goes are.
So I'm not understanding. You already know about this?
No, I would like to.
Okay.
I would like to see that. I mean, I was going to send you a bunch of questions, but that I had started compiling since Friday. But I said, no, let me wait and see what you present to us. One thing I watch very closely is overtime, and we have a ton of overtime in the city. And so sometimes we have a budget that is not realistic. Like, for instance, now we've spent a lot of money so far this year, and I'm assuming that you included that into your numbers and projections for the future. But one thing that would make me feel better for the people who put me up here is to have a scale to make sure that we are on our spending line, that we are not above the line, but that we're on the line or below the line, and so that we are fiscally conservative and are not wasting the public's money.
I think what you're going to find is that across the board, this number, particularly for personnel, as we go through all of the departments, is that what is there is what we've spent already and what we project that we'll spend by the end of June 30th. And so some of it is built into an assumption as the chief, or hopes, that we might bring on 5 more officers before the end of the year. And so where we anticipated that we would fill the positions, then the cost of them is included going forward. In some cases, we know we're not going to be able to fill positions. And so this number is based upon our projection of currently staffed positions through the end of June, and some figure based upon our guess of who we're going to be able to bring on and fill positions. And so it's a combination of those things.
I understand. The thing that, again, since Measure C passed and we had no gap in funding from when others were on the council before my time, we had no gap in funding. So with the amount of money that we have from Measure C, we should be able to not be in the red. We should be in the black for all our spending.
Sure, yes.
One way to reduce overtime, and I'm sure these guys don't look forward to spending less time with their families than they're able to do, is to have the right staffing. I mean, right numbers, not right staffing, you know what I mean. You have the right numbers to adequately cover all your shifts. You have no need for this, except under extraordinary circumstances. Extraordinary circumstances we've been through, but we won't recapitulate them now. But that's how we get there. And until we get there, we're going to have overtime. And people are going to be, we're going to have to find ways to retain people so they don't get burnt out from all the overtime. So anyway, moving on. What did you think about your data and this? Is it going to be confusing?
We're off by $1. Just kidding.
Okay.
Just kidding.
What?
We're right down there.
Okay.
To the penny.
Okay.
So
if that's going to help.
Eric, while they're handing that out, since code enforcement, I was looking on Fund 18, page 1 of 5. Why is code enforcement on that when they should be under fire? I know they used to be under PD, but now they're under fire.
Yeah. That was just a carryover of figures because they haven't been in police for. Again, that's probably a journal entry to get rid of it.
Yeah, that's just, this is a small number here, $116, and last year $160, but, you know, for continuity over time,
Yeah, they're just going to.
it'll be zero.
Zero it out.
Yeah, you want continuity over time to know where things mapped. So that's probably a journal entry you guys can figure out to clear it out.
Okay.
So, Chief, just to
I shouldn't
clarify,
answer your financial questions, but I've been here.
So you have 8 in background now.
I have 5 in background.
Oh, 5. I'm sorry. Okay, and you're expecting to have 5 more by the fiscal year.
I am hoping, praying I will have 5 more willing to come here, either as us sending to an academy, if we're not able to attract anybody to transfer over.
And have we? Remember a few meetings ago we authorized some money for detectives. Any luck with that?
Hopefully by the next council meeting I'll have some good news on that.
Okay, so you got something working already. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
So
now that we have this, let's go through it.
So this is a real quick comparison on Fund 184212. On the left is fiscal year 17-18. On the right, the column fiscal year 18-19, which is being presented tonight. In the middle, you'll see the differences between last year and this year. The major fiscal change would be an additional $386,000, and we'll go over how we came up with those figures. So for personal expenses, fiscal year 17-18, we had $2,516,235. We're hoping to recruit and retain. Our 17 was our goal by the end of June. We also added the positions of jailers that we didn't have before. I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm fighting a head cold, so if I misunderstand you, I apologize ahead of time. So the personnel expenses, you'll see an increase of $62,697. Non-personnel expenses, previous budget was $650,100. Our current request is $813,851 on the right column. And the major changes, we're asking for additional $30,000 for building maintenance. We have additional expense of the election and $70,000 set aside for the equipment tuition for the recruits to go to the police academy. So those are the main changes to go from $650,000 to the $813,000.
Okay, Chief, the election expense, that's a 50-50 with the fire department, so we would, if we saw something for them, we'd see something similar.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, good to know, thank you.
Capital outlay and expenses, we didn't have anything for last year. This year is $60,000, and I'm looking for my notes on that. That covers the. I'm going to jump down to the 45,000, the vehicles for a second while I get my notes for the 60,000. Last year, the 45,923. That's much our 4 Crown Vics, Crown Victoria, or not Crown Victorias, Chevy Tahoes, or Dodge Diplomats. We bought them on a 3-year lease. This next year, I believe, is the last of our 3-year lease. After that, we'll buy them each for $1. We still have Crown Victorias that, as you can see, are in need of some work. Probably get towed a lot, and we're trying to keep them running. By the time we order replacement vehicles, get them approved by the dealership and outfitted, we're talking probably at least about 6 months. So we're looking at 4 Tahoes to match the fleet, and then a transport vehicle for the prisoners. The big question is where the county's going to be in the next 6 months to a year. They have some physical challenges coming up. We don't know if we're going to be able to still transport our prisoners to Mojave, or if we're going to be waiting until we get a bus load and taking them over the hill to Bakersfield. So we're trying. Our goal is to put in for a transport vehicle. So it'll be a total of 5 vehicles, and we're going to go for extended lease, 4-year lease for the 5 vehicles. So that's where you get the extra $100,000 for the vehicles and debt service, again, for the remaining lease that we have. Okay, yeah. Our request to go and be able to track the patrol cars, there's some equipment that we'll need for the vehicles, and that is outlined on the $60,000. So the radios, our FCC, our friends, are coming up with some new requirements. It was narrow banding. We delayed that as much as we could. We did it. And now the talk of a different type of digital system is coming soon. So we put some money aside because we know what's coming. We went away from the rabbit ears, and now it's going digital. So I was hoping that this may be able to clarify the difference from last year to this year, and maybe simplify the changes. If you have any specific line item questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
I got a couple dealing with the vehicles. On the debt service, how many would 4 new Tahoes be running us?
What we're going to try to do is get the Tahoe and the equipment. Some of the equipment that are in the Crown Victorias don't fit in Tahoes. We've been having trouble getting replacement lights. Some of those 2008 parts aren't available, so we're probably going to have to replace the light bars. We're probably talking about $60,000 for a complete packaged vehicle.
Okay, so that's... Yeah. And if that's 4 times 6, that's a good chunk of change. Matter of fact, that's superseding the 145.
Yeah, that's where we're going with the lease.
Okay, how much are we looking at? What's the outlay going to be? If you can follow what I'm saying, is if we lease these vehicles, there's X amount of dollars.
Yes.
But then there's going to be X amount of dollars to get them equipped. And so
I'm looking for my sergeant, who was the last one to get that quote for me.
And then, because then
well, Councilman McGuire, in the past, you saw a vehicle, and then later on you saw the equipment. What Chief's telling you is that the 60,000 is fully equipped. So
Yes.
it's out the door with everything it needs in it, and leased, including all of that. And so instead of leasing the vehicle, then out of pocket buying the equipment, which is also going to last for the 8 years.
So we're leasing everything?
Yes, we're leasing everything. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't,
Oh,
if
all
I
right.
didn't make
So
that
what are we
clear.
looking at on the transport? Because last time we talked, you're looking at a T350.
Right.
And
So what we're looking at is copying what the county has.
yeah, because that's going to be about 60 grand just for that vehicle.
Right.
With all, and that doesn't include all the equipment. That's just including the transportation portion.
Right. So we're going to basically copy whatever the county vehicle is.
Okay, can we
for transport?
Basically jump on the coattails with that and possibly get a better price?
We could. One of the problems that CDCR's transport van, that company. Yeah, go ahead.
Corrections corporations, they're CDCR's workforce. They're the cheapest route to go for outfitting vehicles, transport vans, stuff like that. If we could use them, it would be outstanding, but they are booked up and said they're not taking any outside vendors other than CDCR for the next couple of years.
Go to West
Before
Coast Flex
Sergeant
Saturday.
Blanton leaves, his last day is Friday, 30 years on the police department. I don't know if he's going to get a call and be out of here, but we want to thank him for his service.
Chief, out of curiosity, why are enforcement agencies switching from sedans to SUVs?
Yeah,
Or any
Crown
other
Vics
sedan?
are they
Yeah,
stopped in
but there
2011.
are other sedans. I'm just curious.
So if you ever talk to an officer or deputy that's worked in one of the sedans, one of the chief complaints is either sits too low and their back hurts, they don't have enough room for their gear, or with the MDT, the rifle, the shotgun, everything on the front seat, there's no room for a second officer in that car. So the number one choice right now is the SUV, and it's more practical in our environment. If we were in downtown LA, smaller car, sure, but out here, believe it or not all the streets are paved.
I've noticed that CHP's also gone to some sedans, but a lot of Explorers as well.
Right.
Right. And Durangos.
You haven't seen Durangos in a while.
No, I mean,
know they were coming out.
enforcement agencies. I've seen some Durangos, but mostly Explorers and Tahoes.
Yeah, we went with LA County, had some testing, and they did the Chevy Tahoes, and everyone was impressed with their handling. As everyone knows, we've had a pretty active city, so we've had the opportunity to use the SUVs to their full potential, and they handle very well.
Most of
I'm impressed with
America, Ford and GM are not making many cars anymore. They're giving up making cars because they haven't been profitable, and everybody wants SUVs.
And one thing too, especially in California City, if you go out to a call, we tell our officers you need to make sure you have everything you need for the next 2 hours. So that first aid gear, AEDs, fingerprint kit, the bulletproof shield. The small sedans, it just doesn't cut it unless you're going to strap it to the roof.
You have no room
Get
for the
some bungee
latte
cords.
machine and things.
Councilman Perez said, and the donuts.
What's yeah, because they haven't come up with a pursuit trailer yet to tow behind the patrol cars, so that's why they're going with the SUVs.
Yeah, the SUVs fit the desert.
Thank you.
And the pickup trucks?
The pickup trucks are, without getting too much into what they can and can't do, are limited. Yeah.
The pickup trucks we can only use for a certain V rating of pursuit because they have a light rear end.
Understood.
And the Fords that the chief's talking about, that the CHP are slowly dwindling back out because we have to replace transmissions and brakes very regularly.
You say for the Explorer, you mean? The Explorer?
Yeah, the Fords, yeah.
Oh, okay.
The smaller SUVs.
Yeah,
we
correct,
have
yeah.
one, and that's all we're going to get ever.
Eliminate the trucks then.
The trucks will, just like we've done in the past, the trucks will go to non-pursuit assignments. At the end, we pass them down to Public Works or the city. We'll have some more Crown Vics hopefully in the next couple of months for Meals on Wheels if they need another vehicle. I don't think they'll be needing to do more than 70 in the
That
city.
siren will come in handy.
No, you didn't. You did fine.
So on the 4212, I can go line item by line item, pencil by pencil, paperclip, or do you have any questions on?
Council members, do you have any questions on this?
212. It's pretty much cut and dry. Yeah. Go. Huh?
I have
Another handout?
another handout.
Oh.
I mean, if we want to stay with this theme, I have one for records, dispatch, and animal control. If you just wanted real quick,
Good numbers,
visual.
about the same, won't confuse anybody? That would be
Same
good.
numbers. Same numbers. So the next one that Ms. Sanders is passing out is our records department.
Are y'all getting these too?
Yes, we made plenty.
Okay.
We made 3
Because
for
they're
Al.
going to have to live with this budget.
Two more dispatch, and I'll raise you a dispatch records clerk. So the one being handed out is records for our next fiscal year. Our 2017-18 will be on the left-hand column. The last fiscal year, our budget was $233,333. We broke it down to personnel expenses, non-personnel, capital outlay, and debt service. On the right-hand column is fiscal year 18-19. Our overall difference is lowering by $100,000, and the major change has to do with personnel, is the retirement of 2 of our records people. Position's been vacant for a while. We still have one that I believe Mary might know her start date. I think it's sometime in December. But we're not going to, even if we hired her today, we're not going to spend as much as we did last year because we've gone vacant for a while. So you'll see a reduction of personnel expenses. So by June 30th, we're looking at $80,302 for personnel costs. Everything else is pretty well close. A slight increase in non-personnel expenses. Account for inflation, a slight increase in cost of copy paper, ink. But for this one, the major change is not being able to fill those positions.
Eventually, you'll have to, though, right?
Yes.
Who's going to do that work?
So we're going to.
Who's doing the work now?
We have Rocky that came back part time.
Yeah, but she won't be here forever.
No.
Okay.
But she did start training our new records person 2 weeks ago. So on your tab, it's still under tab 3. And it's under records for the line by line. Is there any questions on records? There's no major changes from last year. Okay. Shall we fly along?
Fly along to the next.
Okay, dispatch, major changes. A slight increase because we're hoping to fill all the positions. Our fiscal year, so Fund 18-4215 for dispatch. Fiscal year 17-18, $385,065. We're increasing by $2,016, which will get you the number on the right-hand column for the next fiscal year. Personnel expenses went down a little bit, and non-personnel expenses went up a little bit. Again, we're talking pennies and dollars. Some things cost more or less than last year. Any questions on dispatch?
I would ask you is the numbers that you have based on your fiscal year 18-19. It's the same thing I asked Diego. How many personnel are you talking about for that position?
6. So this is with us
You don't have 6
anticipating.
now.
No. We don't have 6 now. Correct. You're correct, Mayor. Any questions on dispatch? And with the fire chief on deck, we'll go to animal control. He's getting ready. Animal Control Fund 184217, fiscal year 17-18, $244,227 was the total. We're looking at $237,828. In 17-18, we had 2 animal control officers, 2 shelter workers. Currently, we've been working with. As of today, a animal control officer and 1 shelter worker. 1 shelter worker that we're recruiting and our patrol officer that's in backgrounds. So because we have
a patrol officer, you mean an animal control officer?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I said.
I'm sorry. You said patrol officer. I'm going.
I'm sorry.
What? Got it. Got it.
Apologies. So just because we haven't filled the position, we're going to be lower this year by about $6,400, $6,399.
Note to council: next year, next June, before June,
You'll
put this
see
thing
it.
in the early part of the year, you're going to be looking at bigger numbers, much bigger numbers.
How much money has been spent dealing with that, all those animals that we have been bound to hold?
What the mayor said, too much.
Yeah, I understand that, but you would figure that some of that cost might be. I am. We got to.
Not all those costs are actually in dollars.
Yeah. No, I know.
A lot of it is, a lot of it's volunteer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hours spent cleaning up after those goats, the
Yep.
horse, the chickens. A lot of it's volunteer and work release.
Jim Crane's
Much
one of
more
our
to it.
volunteers that helps out, so he's.
Oh yeah.
So
And
the goats.
Built most of the kennels out there at least twice.
Yeah.
So the goats are on work.
The goats are
release?
creating a real problem out
The
there.
goats are killing it.
Yeah.
They are killing everything that they're inside of. They're beating the hell out of the kennels.
How much money have we spent? Has this city spent on food for them?
Well, you're buying about 10 bales of hay a week,
Well,
roughly.
well, if you check the check register, not every time, but every other time, you're
Time
going to be
there's-
buying something.
You're buying
Goat
horse
food.
feed. You're buying
Yep.
chicken feed. Stuff
Then
that you
you've
shouldn't
gotta
have to be
take care
buying. You
medically.
normally wouldn't be buying. That stuff's not donated.
I understand that, but I don't see it anywhere. If I'm missing it.
That would be under 420, under 4217 420, and that would be under. Give me a minute here.
Do you need me up here anymore?
No, but thank you very much. And thank you for your volunteering and thanks for rebuilding. But that all costs money. You still have to get the supplies to do that. Metal doesn't fall off, grow on trees. Hey, I'm tired.
It's getting late.
You don't have a 420 in the animal control, but you do have a 410 and you have a 450.
Yeah, so it'll be 450.
Okay. So if you noticed, go ahead.
This current fiscal year, actually, I'm sorry, last year was $6,748. Our budget for this coming up year, or the current fiscal, is $9,500. And what was our last financial statement?
They're booked for this year. 9,500 booked for this year.
Yeah, I was trying to give you how much we were at
To
our
date?
last financial.
And while you're looking that up, Christian, I don't want to veer too far off the reservation, but how are we? I thought we decided that we're going to try to do something with these animals through our own legal. Somebody needs some. He's asking for a mic. Are we going to do anything with that? Or are we still waiting for the DA? It's a tag team.
We've been communicating with the DA. As a matter of fact, I talked to David just yesterday about it, and he had said that they, I was just texting him right now to get confirmation.
Okay.
We have offered to prosecute it. They've refused, but allegedly they're going to prosecute it next month.
There we go. Well,
That's what they're saying at this point.
That's what they've said before for the last couple of years. The road, yeah.
The last entry we found was that December 6th, that the court believes he is going to take a plea. But that's
last year.
It's a DA case, though, so we can't dismiss it. The DA has
But a plea only means that he's not going to probably ever get these animals back. We're going to have to disposition the animals,
Right,
correct?
that would probably be part of the disposition.
Okay. Well, yeah, we don't need to go too far off, but we still have this bill to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but we're stuck. Yeah. That's good to know.
Okay.
And I think you said that before, by the way. I think so.
Okay. Sorry, going down that road. Yeah.
That's fine.
So that should be the end of tab 3. Or was that tab 4? I'm sorry. Oh, you're...
But you still have, are you jumping over to go to tab 5? You're going to go
5.
anything else on 5 you want to do, or 6?
So tab...
We did tab 5, actually.
Yeah, so tab 5 is
It's
the
done.
school resource officer grant
Right.
that I mentioned earlier. It's $125,000, and we're working with Diego on that deficit that Councilman Stump talked about.
Yeah. It's small numbers. We're going to fix those.
Any question
Did
on
we do
5?
172, Fund 26?
That's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any more questions on those? Let's go to that one, because you did the special law enforcement already. You went through that.
Yeah, I explained.
Unless you want to add something to it.
What the grant sources are. Yeah, the sources were, and what we can use the funding for, and how much we're supposed to receive. On 25, that's the augmentation for $25,000 that I mentioned earlier. Did you want to go over that again, or? Okay. Just so Fund 26, the half-cent sales tax. As staff, fire chief and I and finance discussed, 3 years ago we discussed when the fire department did not get a grant awarded from them from the OHV program.
You gave them some.
We gave them some of the Prop 172. They've been awarded an OHV grant, so we're taking the money back. So
well, I know you said that, but other chiefs in that position over the years say they still want some of that money back to use for other things, but I digress.
So anticipated revenue, and again, this is an estimation between well, we added what we had last year plus what the fire department's allocation, and we're estimating around $182,000 between, or we should be receiving this year, and normally would have been split. I think they got a third and we got 2/3 or something like that. And since we haven't had full police force, I think we had some money rolled over from the year before. So we're anticipating this year to spend about $182,000, or receive $182,000.
And this is 4214. 184214.
Yes.
Okay. By the way,
No, 2642.
No, I understand Fund 26, but from the counting, when you're looking at a financial statement, you're looking at 184214, right? Which one? Oh, 264214. Thank you for the correction. Sorry, my bad. Okay. Yeah, so that's where you would look in the financial statement. But you know what's interesting is you have right here proposed budget 2018-19, the $182,000.
That was our expected revenue with the agreement we've had with the fire chief and finance.
No, I know.
we're not going to make any major changes on that fund for the next 6 months.
And it doesn't look like you have any expenditures allocated either, or, not really a lot for
It's
salaries.
Minimal.
Very minimal, like 18,700. Unless you got something else somewhere.
Yeah, that's.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? Anyone? Okay. I can't hear. No. Okay, thank you.
Fund 28. Are we good? Okay.
Go, sir.
Fund 28, also known as our AB 109 funding. This is essentially, and this is my definition of how we get this money. The state decided that instead of housing prisoners in prisons, that we could watch over our own felons. So they said, we will give you X amount of money each year to monitor those that would normally be sitting in prison. So it was a way to financially alleviate a little bit of the cost for monitoring those that would otherwise be in a state facility. We used to get a lot more money, and it's slowly going away. At one point, we were supposed to get over 100,000, and it keeps dwindling away.
Well, you're getting some of that peeled off at the county, too, I understand, and other places. Somebody from the fire, I don't know if Ron is... He didn't really feel down. They're waving us off. He's joking. Air off is what I'm hearing. Air off. He's just thrown himself onto the ground.
Must be an airsoft gun.
I don't know. But no one else from emergency services seems to be disturbed by this. So, they're laughing, actually. How many years have we been getting this now? 4, 5? 4? AB 109, I'd have to go and look it up, but I'm not going to do it.
Thanks to the court, I think it was 2010 that AB 109 was...
But we started getting money...
2012, I think, is when we started getting some funding.
Gotcha. And it wasn't a lot, and then
it went up, and it's going back down.
Well, this is a bigger number. Well, maybe not. Okay.
I don't think that's for Ron.
No, I don't think so, because you have somebody fire department. They don't seem to be concerned either. They're just standing there and watching him.
So one of the things that the county gets a portion of AB 109 sweep money. So the police department, sheriff's department, and other police departments will get together and visit other cities, and they will pay for the overtime for the additional officers. So we'll have a temporary pass-through charge of overtime against this account, and within, I believe, a couple months, we'll get reimbursed for our overtime expenses.
Gentlemen, you have any questions about this?
So tab 10, Fund 29.
Chief.
Yes.
Have we thought about including some incentives for officers to possibly in the future be here in town?
Our own officers?
Correct.
It's been discussed, but nothing. That would be a negotiation.
Yeah, it's got to fall under negotiations. We've done it before. During the last negotiation things, but they turned it down. They didn't.
What's the current response time that we require?
40 minutes.
40 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Everyone hired within 40 minutes? Now?
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the. Can't think when the last time we hired somebody. It's been a while.
I do remember. I think we talked about this, that was going to be dealt with later. Right?
Yeah, along with a Christian's office is helping us prepare a contract for reimbursement should any of the trainees decide to go somewhere else before the contract is over. And Raven? Carrie?
Yeah, it's based off of another city's, and yeah, that's what was discussed about potentially trying to seek reimbursement for those who might leave early. But yeah, so we're basically preparing a contract to enable them to do that.
Now, for the magic fund of the hour we were asking about earlier. How have you done so far this year, revenue-wise? Because we haven't gotten a report, by the way, since January.
I have some rough estimates for this last week. For Borax Bill, our revenue is about $50,000 for the last 7 days, 10 days. 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
Staff still needs to get with the local businesses and go over those receipts on revenue that they've received. And I don't know total for the year.
Yeah, I did.
The reason why I asked, we don't really know what's going on out there. We haven't received a report in a long time. We used to get monthly reports during the season and throughout the year, but we haven't received anything. We've asked. They say they're coming, but we haven't received anything. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
so we don't have an idea what's going on.
November, our kickoff season, so July and August. You'll see mostly the general service workers posting signs and doing maintenance. So I'm sure by the next meeting you'll have something that goes over the first month. So the expenses out of Fund 29 is part of our staff's salary. Also pays for premium overtime. We have other city employees that will come out and help issue permits at Borax Bill, especially during November, and we're anticipating another large crowd for New Year's. Usually when the holiday falls within a couple days of a weekend, the city should anticipate a fairly good turnout. So New Year's will also be a big one. On the permits, we have expenses under non-personnel expenses. This is for any supplies that we need to actually print the permits. Also pays for non-OHV grant reimbursables. So what I mean by that is we have to attend January. Excuse me. In January, we start the grant workshops, so we don't get grant money to attend those workshops to pay for those expenses. So we take it out of a local OHV permit revenue. The future on this is that 2 years ago, the city purchased 140 acres by Rutgers through tax default. We're looking at developing that so that it'll be a good revenue stream for the city in the form of being able to charge for camping spaces. Again, we're trying to use other people's money to help boost the economy of the city.
But that wouldn't be permit money. That's going to be development money, right? You're going to go out for a development grant for that?
Well, we'll have to do a development grant to do the research, CEQA, all that stuff. Planning, I'm sorry.
Oh, planning, okay. You have to do that before you do the other. Okay.
Is that the property on the south side of the hill from Silver Saddle?
I believe so, yeah.
So what, Do we have any idea, and not a guess, on revenues brought in by the stickers? Do we have
For this year?
hard facts numbers?
If we want to let the fire chief go next, we can run over while he's giving that presentation and pull up
'cause
records on our
it's-
computer and get back with you maybe at the end of the meeting.
You've got plans to use the money, but we don't know exactly how much money is there.
We don't. We just don't have it in front of
Well,
us.
that's one piece of it, but this is separate from that.
Yeah.
And that this is what we are charging as a city for. So, I mean, these are based on our fee schedule that we put together for people visiting out here. But again, we haven't gotten any reports, so you don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob, could you look into that?
The key element is that when you look at the revenues that flow to the city that could be affected by this, it's essentially one source of revenue, and that's sales tax. And so when we look at the total amount of sales tax that we're collecting right now, I'm sure some portion of that could be attributable to, people who visit. But all the other taxes, I mean, it has no effect on anything other than sales tax. They buy fuel at Quick Stop when you can get in, and again, it's sales tax on the fuel, it's sales tax on the food, the things that they do.
I don't know that that's what we were asking for.
No.
That's not what we're asking for. There was a report that used to come to us on a monthly basis about what's going on. We've given samples to this a few times, and we've not seen anything in a long time. It's not going to affect me, but it will have an impact on the people that are coming on council and the ones that are staying. You want to know so you can have an idea, because I'll tell you something, the taxpayers don't want to pay for this. They want to pay their special tax to be paid for police services. They don't want their money going out there. They want it to be self-sustained. That's a fact.
That's what this program is all about.
And I do get that, but we don't know that. We don't know how much money is, we don't know what you're making, other than what's on this piece of paper right here.
Okay.
And if we got a
bring the
financial
report for you.
statement, yeah.
So that
No reporting.
No, I understand that, but you know what I'm talking about. It's a monthly report that y'all did produce for us, for the council.
any questions on 29 besides that one?
Yeah, no.
We lost the fire chief?
Could I suggest we take a brief
Sure, we can do
recess?
get a break. I know, got a break. You got to get a break.
And let's get your pages punched so you can put them in your binder. We can take care of that. But yeah, let's take a few minutes. We can go on.
All right, we're going to take about a 10-minute, or unless it runs over, but not forever.
So these numbers are getting punched, or these pages are getting punched.
Hold it up like you got I can do it like I really am. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. You don't know how missed you will be.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what I know.
Hey, how are you? Somebody got your name wrong.
It's right here on the.
I said, what's your
on the desk.
The electric one?
electric one? Kenny. Kenny. Oh, I'm probably.
No, it's called a hole punch.
Sorry about that. I'm changing everything. I'm changing the sage.
Get it? I don't know.
I'm sorry about that.
Okay. Hey. You gonna put up with this? No, I know. Be rolled right over.
Yeah, you had ranch engineer architect. So we're a lot closer than just talking about this budget. I got all three of them together. So man.
Look, you Raj talking, Raj was talking about your sister. Eddie just said, and now you're here. I'm like,
yeah, he can call me. He can call me. He says, "Is he one time?" Says, "I'm sorry, I cannot see you."
All right.
Nah, he's a good guy.
There is no rethinking. You know, I think
you get past security, sir. Well, I know, but just like you came out of the GQ magazine. Just walk out of the GQ magazine.
I walked off because they kicked me out. Get the hell out of here.
Yes, sir. I thought somebody set it aside. Their number. $6 are available. They're not going to ask for it. But the question is, all of this will you got to figure out $5,000 or is it or is it $10,000? No, I think so no budget.
think that we speak. Okay, so we can't track down. We can't, it is like, we're speaking. We have to set a trend. We've made it. So there's a car line. I realize we
Is that why he's throwing his body on the ground?
It's not, it's nothing. No, we don't. And it's not.
No, and for me, it's my 6th year.
Go right in.
What did it say on the, what says data? Okay, I agree with you. All right,
We don't test it. And one of the ways you need, you won't be able to put it on item.
Well, if I'm totally lost,
Maybe that's okay, no, that's fine, sure.
Oh, no, I'm sure I'll find it.
Yeah.
Excellent. So you're not, fall asleep.
I'm done.
How do you like it? Getting caught up? Have like policies and procedures we put in the books over the last year. Yeah, they all need to be revisited, I'm sure, from time to time. Oh, family. Yeah. I hope you remind not to be. I'm ready to go back to a private life.
It's coming.
Yeah, not soon enough, brother. Not soon enough. Yes, I did.
And it's only 300 and something bucks that voted on the base for $180 because they had all these things off. Wow. It was $249 and then like another $70 off. I got it for $180. And then I got this thing for the base.
Which one are we?
The pay with it is Target.
Of course, the big ones are a little bit harder.
Yeah.
The ones I have are
Sorry.
Now I have an iPad 1, 2, 3, 6, well, and
you want to get rid of it,
my original iPad is
I've got a pain, and I don't tell you, I don't want to hear it. Because I know your pain is still there. It's not in the way that you're suffering, but I actually.
what I do at work.
I want to help you. I just. Because I did once here, so I did. Except, you know,
I'm just saying. But that,
equipment or
X divided by himself. I expressed to me something wrong. She says, I have no
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. They wouldn't do it to themselves.
You have to get your medicine through.
Then you know all the
Yeah, a lot depends. I know, I'm thinking.
Hey, let me be. I got one more meeting. I know, man. You gotta go. Diego just asked me which yeah, right. I explained what you said. And then, we have a bigger county now, and it's like,
every turn I get, I'm like trying to look at this.
Literally within a week, that second man comes here,
I called it you.
All right, let's take our places. All right, everybody, if you'd come back to your seats, find your places, find your home. We will move on to the fire department, which is tab number 4. Everyone?
Chief, just flip over to the end, the last page, and then that's it.
All right, so and we're all making it to our seats. All doing fine. We're getting there. All right, we are back. So, Chief Goodell, floor is yours.
Well, as per Councilman Carlos, just thank you very much for letting me make that presentation. I hope you enjoyed it all. Well, that's what you told me.
Oh, no. Actually, a lot of your stuff is very self-explanatory because your sheet is very similar to the Chief Hurtado in the police department when it speaks to where you're at now and what you have currently filled and what your proposed additions are. And you have mentioned before that, and you can take it from here, the rationale for the 3 additional engineers. The question that I would have is why engineers over firefighters? Just a simple, easy question. And tell us what you will do with those 3 people again for those that are in the audience hearing this perhaps for the first time.
I'm going to speak a little bit off my narrative. If I don't hit your question right up front, I'll hit it during my presentation. But if I don't, I'll be sure to bring me back. But an engineer would be able to function as we'll call him or her a lieutenant. Okay, so the staffing as we're proposing is the Type 1 engine, full-on engine would be a captain, engineer, firefighter. The squad would be staffed by a firefighter and an engineer who could function in the role as both a technician or a hands-on person, but also would be able to supervise in the event that that was required. Okay, and they would both be staffed with at least one paramedic, at least, okay, because that, the rationale behind this, and it's within the narrative, is the squad. Well, let's just go down the narrative.
Okay. Yeah, I would say asking those questions because some people may not have this narrative, but maybe now you do.
Well, I'll make it pretty plain English interpretation or translation of a little bit of a lengthy thing, which is not unusual for me. Okay, so we mission statement stuff, but true stuff, heart stuff is we want to provide total quality, multi-service, value-added service to the citizens of California City and the people that we help out when we go reciprocal. So part of that is Measure C, which we're very, very grateful for, and we don't want to forget that. That will help us to do that. And that will help us if we can kind of move past the table just for a moment. Let's talk a little bit about how we will accomplish working toward resolving our community's emergency and protection needs. And this is, I think this is a quantifying a little bit of a quality focused presentation. We want to meet emergency and protection needs with 90% effectiveness 90% of the time. And an initial and critical step toward achieving that is the construction of, the establishment of, in the application of a two-piece, 5-person response model. Okay, that is, like I said before, a Type 1 engine with 3 persons, captain, engineer, and firefighter on board. And then we would have a squad, which would be more like a 2-ton squad, extended cab, paramedic squad, much like other fire departments are applying right now.
County, similar to those?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And
exactly, yeah. Okay.
And that, and it's best if I stick with the script because then I won't miss anything.
Okay, sorry.
No. That wasn't all meant like that. That was more of a me stick to the script sort of a thing. So the design and implementation of the model will accomplish these objectives. The smaller and more economical squad will respond to and take care of the greater share of the EMS-related events, enabling the Type 1 engine to concentrate on more complex and multitask and larger challenge calls. This arrangement will, of course, relieve the engine of many responses, reducing its wear and tear and extending its service life. Let me interject here that if it's a full-on or even leaning toward a full-on response, a very seriously hurt person or several seriously hurt persons, what we would call beginning to be a med alert or a trauma care activation system sort of thing, we might need air, etc. Both pieces are going to roll. But that gives us that flexibility that if it is something that requires all of the personnel, all of the equipment, both pieces, say it has a fire component to it, then we're able to put the hurt really, really quickly and keep the problem as small as we possibly can. Which is bullet point number 2. And now we can turn the page to page 2 of the narrative, the white stuff. It will meet this objective. 2 apparatus strategically applied will permit us to take care of 2 competing events. Again, we'll solve the problem at hand because that's an axiom. Take care of your problem before you start thinking too far ahead of other problems. But if we are able to, without compromising the care of and the safety of our guys on that first incident, if, for instance, we did have a call in the second community during dirt times, for instance, okay, and we had a call in Wonder Acres at the same time for a vehicle fire or assisting 14 or taking care of our own stuff out in Wonder Acres, we could have, we would be able to apply, without diluting either of them, we could apply one piece to the call in the second community, the other piece to the call to resolve the call in the Wonder Acres area. A very good response model, and if I haven't said it, it's something that I would like to have us all camp on, and that is agency adequacy or self-sufficiency. Part of that 90% little phrase that we went over before, the 90% effectiveness, 90% of the time, 90% doing what we're supposed to do, is let's resolve 90% plus of our own emergencies and other services that we're supposed to provide with the California City Fire Department. And this will enable us to do that. More people means less stress physically and psychologically, which translates to healthier firefighters. We talked about this with the police chief. Less overtime is not just less money, it's also less wear and tear on our folks. And enough said. The two-piece, five-person, bullet point number 3, page 2, the two-piece, five-person response model will improve our insurance services offices rating, okay? That more and better and more expedient coverage translates to better insurance rates for the people that we're protecting. It's safer for us. We provide an improved product. They recognize that. That is felt to our constituents, including the people in this room, that is felt in reduced insurance rates. It also will meet or exceed the National Fire Protection Association's time versus distance response standards, that improves our national and state fire department status. Okay, closely related to the preceding item, but more local in nature. By being able to take care of more of our own stuff in our own backyard, relieves our neighbors of some of the stuff that they used to have to do for us. That is a inter-department service builder. That joins the two fire departments and Edwards Air Force Base and San Bernardino and China Lake possibly. That tightens things up among us or between us. And it's tough to quantify, but the less we depend on the other fire departments to do our job, number one, it makes us feel better because we're doing what we're supposed to do. Number two, it makes us less dependent upon them, and they are more eager to help, which they already are, and it also equates to less money. Because when they come over here and we go over the 2-hour automatic aid agreement, the clock and the ticker for the money begins to click, and they can begin to charge us for that. Also, a little bit more indirect, but still very important, we are able to go over and help them, as we already are, without leaving the city uncovered for extended periods of time. The county will cover behind us. If we go to Mojave and we're there for a long time and something happens in California City, they will send somebody from Boron, or they will send somebody from Randsburg or Inyo Kern. But it's not nearly as responsive as if we have our own people here that we left back, because we're able to commit a squad and 2 persons or an engine and 3 persons, and we still can cover our own backyard. Finally, the 2-piece 5-person response model adds 1 more firefighter, an engineer, to the prevention, mitigation, code compliance, public education force. That's another person, and I heard it brought up earlier this evening, boots on the ground. Well, boots on the ground are pretty darn important when we're teaching our kids to stop, drop, and roll in case something happens to them. Or we're getting out the safety message to the seniors. Or we're making inspections out there and making sure that things are fire compliant, code compliant, emergency services compliant, all those other things. It enables us to train more. It enables us to administrate better, to manage and lead better, to go out into the community and be the people that we are supposed to be out there for them. Yes, it is very combat-oriented, but we would all agree that the best fire is the one that never occurs. The best injury is the one that never occurs. The best property saving is not the one that we got in the early stages of the fire, which this model will enable us to do. But what about that inspection that caught that violation in a building, in the Aspen Mall, put it to bed so nothing happens of either a minor, moderate, or major catastrophe? So to summarize, and then we can start talking about facts and figures. Faster, safer, bigger and better is always good, especially when it helps us to do the most good for the most people all the time. That's what I feel the citizens of California City are asking me and you, my administrators, to do for them, is give them a cost-effective, fiscally prudent, value-adding service machine. And that service machine, not just for combat stuff, which is very, very, very important, but also for the other things that are related to being a total quality, total service fire department.
Thank you, Chief. You opened the door on something, so I'm going to get a little leeway on that. You had mentioned and showed to me, and we had talked about the mutual aid agreement not long ago, and it was supposed to come to council or something to put signatures on it. Where are we on that? Everybody's looking around. But
I'm just trying to be, it was given to and it's being refined, edited, and perfected.
Okay. Okay. Then somebody else will be signing that.
Yeah,
all right.
And we are literally, I don't know about literally,
you'll be signing
but
that.
we are very, 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 very close to having that completed.
Okay.
In reference to the squad, I'm assuming that the firefighter is going to be the firefighter paramedic and not the engineer. Correct? And the reason why I'm asking is Halls has a tendency, it seems like Cal City ambulances are gone. And they're out on calls. But the problem is the ALS units are not always coming into town. It's usually the BLS, which is basic life-saving. And when you have an ALS, that's advanced life-saving, and ALS are the paramedics. And if we roll our people and they happen to be a paramedic and they start treatment and they show up a BLS, that paramedic now is, by law, is mandated to go with that patient to the hospital until he's released or relieved by somebody of equal or greater training. That's in health and safety.
Chuck, I didn't used to be as passionate, and maybe I'm still not, because Andrew has a lot more energy than I do. But not as good looking, but he's more humble. But anyways, I didn't used to be as passionate about medics as I am right now. It wouldn't bother me at all to have 5 of them, but I understand that, you know, there may be, you know, there's some wiggle room on stuff like that. That's stuff that we need to talk about maybe at a different time.
Okay.
But I do believe that there should be a couple medics on duty at least.
Oh,
with
absolutely, absolutely. And but my concern comes into if that is the case, then we've lost that equipment and that squad, and until. Yeah, I understand the other person can go on the engine, but then how are we going to get our firefighter or whoever back? You?
I was up when we had the unfortunate one that Eric referred to, the little 15-year-old boy. And that's part of being a chief. Yeah. If you don't want to do it, then don't become a chief. You go and pick up your firefighters, because the ambulance guys, Lord love them, are sometimes a little bit tardy in getting them back. And so, no, don't tell anybody. Anyways, so, well, no. Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to criticize them, but anyways, so we went. I went to the hospital and I picked up Jason and brought him back so that we could keep. I think we only had 2 persons left behind, and if Jack or one of the other fellows had to go and pick him up, then it would have left 1 person in the city. But in the case of the 2-piece 5-person, the squad could leave and send the firefighter. That would reduce us to a medic on the engine.
Yes.
And if we have the redundancy that I would like to see, we would still have a medic or 2.
Okay. All right. I see where you're coming from now. Sounds good. Sounds good.
You have any questions? I'm not going to get in a debate about ISO. I'm not going to get in a debate about time and distance. I'm not going to get a debate about any of this stuff. I know that there's other sides to this conversation, though, that aren't always brought up, and we're not going to bring those up tonight.
I just got one silly question. Down on the blue page, and it'll be page 2 of 3.
Okay.
Under suppression, the purchase of equipment, you've got...
that would be item 740.
Way down there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 740. Thank you.
Okay.
That $300 I am assuming, or 300,000. Sorry, I didn't mean to stroke you out there. My bad. The 300,000 I am assuming is for the new SCBA's.
I've got it all.
It's actually a combination of all the capital for the year, so it's a lease payment, not an actual. So, because all the equipment has a lifespan.
Yes.
Then we're going to be leasing the equipment based upon the lifespan.
So is that going to be covering the SCBA's and part of the engine?
The engine,
the new engine,
squad, and the SCBA.
Okay, that solved that. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, do you have any questions on this additionally?
I would hope that the code enforcement people would settle down, and when we tell them we inadvertently left them off of the list of the personnel. We are continuing with the 2 code enforcement officers.
On page 2 of 3, you have code enforcement.
You've got code.
And you've got code enforcement, salaries and non-personnel and benefits. It's all there.
The recap sheet on page 1 is the one I'm talking about. That doesn't list the...
Well, that's there too. That's actually there too under expenditures, personnel services, or I'm sure it's personnel service, not personal services.
I'm just talking about the little the little spreadsheet on the
narrative
first
thing?
page.
Oh, I got you. All righty, I get you on that little
Well,
thing.
the numbers are all in there for.
Yeah, yeah. No, but yeah, you're right. It's covered elsewhere in this.
So I think in terms of the overall discussion again with public safety, that what we have in here that is the capacity by going to the 3-2 response, using the engineer, adding the engineer, getting the equipment that we need in place, literally all of the equipment instead of piecemealing some of this out there, that we then have the ability to increase not only the dependability of our response, well, the dependability is that increase the quality by being able to respond to a variety of things at one time, where now we can essentially find ourselves in everybody's going to a single call, and then what do we do? This gives us the capacity of handling more than that. I think when we go back over, if we look at all of our medical assists during the year, there's many times when just the two can go out, they can settle it, take care of things, be back, and then we're not tying up an engine and 3 people for that, and so that's going to help. On the overtime, when you look at the blue sheets on page 2 of 3, under suppression, the straight overtime and premium overtime from last year was the 31,292, and this year going forward, we're proposing by the end of this June to drop that to the 31,202. Once we get fully staffed, when we're down 4 firefighters positions. When we get fully staffed, then the premium overtime for the following year should drop. We are showing the overtime related to wildlands. If you go down to the bottom of that column, 112 through 140, so that we can track very clearly on as we go through the financials. That's where we will charge overtime related to wildland fires. And then if you look at the revenues detail on page 3 of 3, under revenues, you go down to the miscellaneous revenues, wildland services. We're showing 73,112, and so this is where we'll be able to keep track of how does our expense relate to wildland and the actual revenues that we get. And sometimes there's a lag in being reimbursed, but we should always make money is not what we're talking about. We should be receiving back more than we expend. And so this will give us a good way to be able to track that as we go through at any point throughout the year, to track where we're going with that. So I think we're headed in the positive direction by increasing the staffing, and then as we get staffed up and are able to maintain that level, then we should see that overtime drop in the coming years. So I thought it'd be important to point that out to you, how we're going to deal with those issues. And again, the equipment purchases, the $300,000 at this point is the estimate of what the lease payment would be on almost all of it. So we're looking at the engine at $770,000.
Yeah, and we're in the BAs. I amortized it. I've got it in here. I had it bookmarked or finger marked, but I did the math the other night. Okay, it's right here. I actually went 800,000, amortized 80,000 over 10 years lease purchase. Squad 150,000, 30,000 times 5 years. Command vehicles a couple, 25 over 5 years. SCBA's 300 at 60 times 5. We might squeeze that down a little bit, get a better deal. Generator one-time purchase, that's critical. It's right around the corner, because if it's not right around the corner, then the disaster is right around the corner, and we're not going to have a generator. So that's on its way. That's going to be a one-time purchase of $40,000, and that will be with a maintenance package to it.
The
And
secondary benefit of that is the current generator will move to the Strata Center, so that we'll have that building will be able to operate in an emergency.
And what about City Hall?
Housing people in an emergency at City Hall.
No, but if we have a major catastrophe and we lose power,
You're going to go to the EOC at the police department.
Anyway, that'll
It's
be
in our
another
emergency
budget line item
guidelines.
right here. Yeah. So this will, because we thought of it as the Strata simply because we can put a lot of people in that building if we need to. So
How big is the generator?
it's a little Sears 5 by.
No, it's the problem with it is a single phase, and we need a three-phase generator.
Yeah.
So why did we not get that?
The new
new
one
one will
I think
have that.
is, I wish Joe were here.
Okay.
It's way big. It's way big enough. 35.
It's a cat or an Onan?
It's a cat.
Okay.
But
What about-
what's its KW? I know I should know, but
Probably 20,000 or?
I think it's, you and I talked, was it 35, Don? Yeah, it was a
Okay.
35 or 40 because like Andrew said, the other one would push half of the station. Like-
What about fuel storage? Because this is a problem that we had in the military. You have to have your fuel storage in a tank that has to be so far, and what are you doing, like how big is the storage for the diesel fuel or whatever you're going to
I
use? to run?
believe it needs to be, it is part of the unit. Man, I'm sorry for being a little underprepared on that, but it's got to be a 12-hour be able to perform without being fueled again. Okay, 55 gallons of diesel, and if push came to shove, we can bring some from other sources. We could go down to the yard and get it from there once we wound our way around. And let's just say we will make it bulletproof for 24 hours.
I'm just saying that, and you guys are the fire department, but have your fire marshal check it, because in the military, when we have inspections, ORIs, having the right storage of diesel fuel or whatever you're using to fuel it in the right position in the right place, that's one thing that always comes up, and everybody gets bit in the butt for usually like on a UCI on a compliance inspection. So just make sure, and you got a guy back there who's retired civil engineering. He can tell you on how, I'm sure he's familiar with that, and your fire marshal. So just make sure we do it the right way.
Extinguishers, no smoking, shut-off switch, yeah.
Okay. Questions?
Nope.
No? At this time, I'd like to at least offer the opportunity to anybody in the public that has a question to ask about either of these budgets, if you have anything, or a comment.
I'll be brief. I've been asking for, DJ Tuhig, mycalcity.org. I've been speaking here at City Hall with respect to the possibility of doing something different as it relates to public safety. We've attended the budget hearings for years. We continue to hear your diligence and your concern about your services and the effectiveness of your dollars. One thing I haven't heard done yet is setting aside funds that will allow us to create a new model of policing that would be a community policing model. I would love to see the dollars set in the reserve funds so that when you do negotiate and come to a place of agreement, that you may have those funds possibly set aside in the reserve fund. You can write the program subsequently, but I think the provisional should be in the budget. I think you need to put your checkbook where your mouth is, and we have to improve the policing in California City. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate you saying that, because that is something that's been discussed but we've not done. So we really need to look at that.
Thank you.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. Anyone else? I agreed with DJ. Jesus, put it on your calendar. It's not. It's 9. What is that over there?
About
24.
Yeah.
Yeah, put it out there. We get along about some things, right?
More than you'd like to admit.
I would. Yes, exactly. We're texting buddies all the time. Anyway, that's not true. But anyhow, anyone else from the public have any questions? Even the media, you have any questions? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for this. We're going to vote on this as a package at the end, I believe. We're not voting each one because there may be information subsequent that comes up from either your two departments or along the way in this process. And then you're looking at me like you're confused there for a second. Okay, no, maybe it's just a face I haven't looked at yet, an expression I haven't seen yet. I thought like, okay, it could be. Yeah, you're funny too, yeah. So tomorrow, what do we have, sir? General fund, okay. At this time, we still have some other business before we can cut people loose. Anybody have any more questions? Okay, no. We're going to go to the council agenda before we go into closed session. This portion of the meeting is reserved for council members to present information, announcements, and items that have come to their attention. The Brown Act precludes council staff or public discussion. Short staff responses are appropriate. The council will take no formal action. A council member may request the city clerk to calendar an item for consideration at a future meeting or refer an item to staff. Council member McGuire.
Before we, Bob, before we go into closed session, I need to talk to you one-on-one about something that has occurred tonight. Yeah.
What did I do?
You didn't do anything. Okay. Nobody up here did anything wrong, and it's a little disturbing. So I'll talk to you about it either after closed session or after, but I definitely need to talk to you.
Okay.
To all our city employees that worked so very, very hard over last weekend. Thank you. You people are incredible. You do so much with so little. And hopefully now we can turn that around. And we can get more people on the street and make things a lot better for everybody. And if we do not talk to anybody up to in a couple weeks, very Merry Christmas.
Councilmember Paris.
No, ma'am.
Councilmember Stump.
Nothing.
Mayor Pro Tem Gomez.
Nothing.
Okay, look, see, it's always got to come down to me. Well, here's the thing I need to bring your attention. Earlier this evening, there was an exchange, and let me explain why there was that exchange. We, as a city, should not allow our city to accept reduced services. Without a contract, we should have open competitive bidding. And I'll tell you, we had a situation not too very long ago with another business in our community that was giving away service to the city, giving it away free. And they also have a lease with the city. So that puts the city in a really bad situation should the person that's leasing default on those leases or have a problem with them. Because then they're going to come back to the city and say, look, we gave you all of this. That is a bad situation for the city to be in. It's not a healthy situation. So we need to keep those things in mind. If you don't have a contract and things should be on open bid, we should be knowing what we're paying for. Just arbitrarily receiving gifts is not healthy, legally. Is it? He's just going to agree with me to shut me up. So anyway, no, I know he understands this. So we had to stop that, and they actually now send us a bill for those free services, and you know about that. Yeah, about the airport and the animal shelter.
Well, I'll say for when we did the additional work, and we were losing the landscape contract, not once did I ever communicate with anyone, complain about anything. That was the decision the city made, and I was okay with it.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, this is moving into closed session. Public comments. Members of the public are welcome to address the City Council only on those items on the closed session agenda. Each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak. Tonight we have closed session 1, pursuant to Cal Government Code Section 54956.9D2, potential litigation 1 case. Christian, is this a 549? It's the same code, just a second case. These are 2 separate items, so it would be CS1 and CS2 at this point, and I couldn't tell you what either one of them are. So anybody from the public have any questions before we go into closed session? All right, we will adjourn to closed session. You want to do that in here, or you want to do it in there? Where do you want to go, guys? We'll stay right here. We just need to clear you guys out. Everything goes. Cameras, everything. Mics.
Microphones.
secondary things.
Good.
Environmentally, biggest thing?
Really? You go for me? Okay, so, you weren't here for the last one. Where's the demand? I just bought the wife that a few months ago.
Oh, really?
She loves that thing.
Oh, yeah, it's fun.
She was trying to decide between the Surface and this, and she decided on this. And I'm glad she did, because everyone I spoke to about the Surface says, yeah. Oh yeah, you told me also.
I have a
Along with
Surface,
other people, yeah.
and you know what I do with that Surface? I do digital puzzles on it. You know what I do on my iPad Pro? Everything.
Yeah, no, the wife, that iPad Pro, man, she.
You have your pencil too, right?
I do.
Yeah, I love the pencil.
Big dog.
Yes, I do. Yeah. And by the way, overtime? Or standing around watching TV. Make my day. It is, there is. And
The bad thing about this case is the charges.
I just do the.
I got this from the BS.
Pay my husband's taxes, they don't, not everything is good for BS. Not always quality there. We're gonna come down to that table, are we going in here? I don't know. What
No, they're gonna go in there.
Okay, we're gonna do here, because it's gonna take time to get the rest of the stuff out. We'll roll some.
I'm gonna ask you something.
Okay.
So are we doing it here then?
I think so. Oh my God. Oh my gosh, where's the camera? Where's the camera? Come on now, don't give.
You signaled him, I saw that.
Remember, he's a bombardier on a B-52.
Hey, send the helicopter down.
Gosh, where is my camera?
No, yeah.
All right, sounds good.
So professional.
What are you guys doing?
They're sick, them children, so.
Are we good with chairs?
I'm fine with chairs. We're just waiting for others, it'll be a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, let me throw this in this
The
time.
mayor has a pen.
Oh, you ready?
He's the only one without a pen, Christian.
I am ready.
Get another chair or something?
Yeah, it is. I've had it for a while.
I told the wife about that.
I'm gonna stand if I can for a little bit.
Yeah, that's
I bought her
fine.
that a few months ago.
Yeah, the only problem I have is the aftermarket. Can you sit there for one? I wish there was better.
My back
It's
wants to
bigger
go
and
and just
just
slide
slide
and
it
see
here.
it.
I tend to break.
Is that iPad?
Yeah, oh, I love
I
it.
just use the lockable, I don't use that.
It does everything on that thing.
So look at this, stuff from my
I
fingers.
mean, the
Huh?
keyboard, not.
I'm gonna stand. My back is going, hi, stupid.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a
Okay.
12.9.
Yeah, I think the wife does this.
All right, so I'm gonna stand.
I wouldn't go with the Surface Pro, that's a piece of crap. Sorry, did I say that out
What do
loud?
you mean for everybody?
For the council, they're gonna have
Have
their agendas
iPad
and everything.
Pros,
on there.
really?
Yeah.
They're doing printing.
And we were waiting for you.
Wait for the dinosaurs to leave.
so easily with the Granicus system, and then wait for planning commission to do stuff.
That's awesome,
It's
that's
really
smart. Okay,
Okay, so the first item concerns a letter, and I actually, where is mine?
I don't know.
No, it's
It
here.
was my turn.
Not in the
to watch
budget.
it.
Chuck, you want a
Yeah,
chair?
No, I gotta stand for a little bit.
this is something that just kind of came to light, and then, in the the mayor had asked that I put this one forward because of legal concerns. I think there was, looking this out, I guess some of you. So it's just something, I guess, for general discussion, and I guess this